Okay, I think it is starting right now. Is anyone listening? Is anyone? Anyone listening? So I'm going to post the link in the chat. So here it is. Is anyone joining in? Anyone joining in? Anyone? Hello? So, how are you able to discuss this? And we have someone who has joined already. Can anyone hear me?
Can you hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
Yes, although you're slightly, I think your signal is breaking up. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Your signal's still breaking up.
Yeah, let me check something here. Turn down the bandwidth.
Anyone else wants to join in?
Is that any better?
Hello?
Yo.
Oh, there's someone. Oh, Octane Gamer, you're here now.
Yep. Hey.
Okay. I think the start of the live stream is a little bit awkward since I'm not used to being the host of a live stream.
And I'm sorry if you hear the background. I'm playing Overwatch.
Okay then, so you're here, Octane Gamer. Okay, what about you, Virgilius? Is your mic working?
If your mic is not working, and if you're using Windows, go to the bottom right, go to speakers, and just right-click playback device, and then you can find your mic and see if it's working.
Is my mic any good? You said the signal's bad?
Yeah, you're cracking.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, go to top right of the. If you can see the settings thing. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can try it out. Oh, here it is. It says adjust bandwidth usage on where the try it out. See if that will work.
So turn it down.
Or turn it up. It looks like. Go all the way to the right.
Yeah, it's on maximal bandwidth here.
Oh, geez. Either your internet is pretty that bad. Try this. Go to your the gear setting and check the microphone you're using.
If anyone's hearing someone chewing, that's me. I'm just eating pizza.
Oh, me too. Actually, for me as well. I'm eating pizza as well. I can't eat right now because I'm too busy playing.
Okay. I still.
How about now?
That's so bad.
Vergilius, could you still talk?
No.
I can hear you somewhat, but you're constantly muting yourself.
Type it in the chat on the right. See if you can talk to us that way. Yeah, I can hear you. Perfect.
Oh.
Perfect.
Okay, so this microphone is still shit.
Yeah, it's still shit. I don't think it's the microphone. I think it's just your internet.
Is it that bad, or is it still intelligible?
Well, it's somewhat. I can still hear you.
Okay. Still hear you, but some of the words can still crack.
So do you want to start this off? Oh,
Yeah, let's get on with it.
yeah. So what do you guys want to talk about first? You guys still want to talk about the Chicago thing, like just Chicago attack on the white?
No, because I'm not actually that fluent in that subject. I mean, I've watched a few videos about it, but it's a little awkward for me to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if you want to get your opinions, though, I still think we could talk about it. You can just give your 2 cents about it when you think about it, in my opinion.
Okay, then. Even though I'm still the host of the live stream, I'm a little bit awkward on that subject.
Okay. But if not, it's okay.
But is there anything in particular you're interested in, or about the Chicago incident?
But we can still talk about that subject anyway. Just
Sure.
want to hear your opinions. But before we go on, is Virgilia still talking, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. I hear it nice and clear.
Very clear, or how clear?
Like you're not crackling up, at least. I mean, you don't have the grit. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
Can anyone still hear me well, though? I still have an awkward tone, and I think my microphone is still a little bit crappy.
Yeah, you're fine.
I can still hear. Yeah, you're fine.
So Louis, you said that you wanted this hangout to be a discussion about your video on equality? Is that the principal topic you would say?
Well, yes, at first. After that, there could be any subject we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that goes with me.
Okay, now on the subject of my video of what is equality, in which I made it clear it was crudely made and I had trouble trying to edit the video with my original software, so I had to use a different one, and the result was a watermark. And another reason it was crudely made is the way I made it the script, in which I couldn't articulate it well. What are your thoughts on my video, though?
I haven't watched it yet, but I'll give you my 2 cents on equality. I do think that equality is sort of like the idea everyone is never oppressed or sort of turned down to a state that one has more privilege than the other. But here's the thing. I'm sort of convinced now that it's kind of hard, the idea of equality now. Like somebody has got to be sacrificed. Somebody has got to be at the bottom level, doing up for the higher level, in my opinion.
Okay, then.
Well, typically, I was going to say, typically these discussions, they get dichotomized into either equality of outcome or equality of opportunity. So those are the main versions of equality. There's also another form of equality in the moral sense.
Oh yeah,
I think people may be talking about. So in a sense, at least 3 different versions of the concept of equality.
Okay, all right.
Well, it depends also in like how the movements that use equality define it in the first place. Like many movements start with like general world words, and they really don't put clear definitions in the movement. So it's really open to interpretation when they execute those words as like directives, you know. So if for example there is like a communist movement that seeks total social equality, well, even the communists themselves have debates about what kind of equality they were searching for. There were more economic equality, or more what would you call it?
Moral equality,
psychological equality. You know, more like let us all think the same.
Can we stop for a moment? I think I saw something in the chat. King Vegeta is saying that we should invite both Marushan Struggle and Fritz Imperial. And why isn't Mr. Spark joining with us?
Well, I think Mr. Spark's more interested in chat cancer than discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
And some people
I
could
shall
be
leave
afraid.
alone.
But that's perfectly fine. You know, everyone's got to play their role. Some people have to inject cancer to the chat.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway, I think
I can't believe they're weird. Oh wait, Mr. Sparks had just said I don't have a mic.
Okay.
What about King Vegeta? Should I post the link there?
Sure.
Hey, do you want me to invite Fritz? I'm friends with Fritz.
Okay. Then what about Marushan Struggle? I don't
I met him.
know.
I met him. I met him once with Nabad once. And, oh yeah, and I think last live stream. I'll probably ask Fritz if he can invite him as well.
You should invite Merchant Struggle because he made a video on this topic. I think actually today about the.
Oh,
and
okay.
his initial question was also his question of what is equality and in what sense do we mean to say when we say that people are equal or social groups are equal. I think this actually responds to Lewis's message for feminists video as well.
Okay.
So he might have some input on this subject too.
Okay.
Even though there's
the only. Go ahead.
I was about to say, even though there's a button that says invite people, since I don't know Marushan Struggle and Fritz Imperial that well, I am unable to invite them with that button, and I don't even have a Twitter account.
Don't worry, I'll invite Fritz. I'm friends with Fritz on Twitter.
Yeah, Merchant Struggle is also on Twitter if you can find him too.
I'll tell Fritz to invite him as well.
Okay then.
Oh, that's the live stream. That's the link.
Anyway, Lewis, was there any particular questions you had just to actually inject some controversy into this discussion or what?
Well, yes. Now, on the discussion about my video on equality, well, you did leave me a comment, and you said that what Lee Kuan Yew mentioned about the human creature being unequal. You did say it had something to do with values, and since the way I express my opinions are a little bit awkward, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, there's this classic philosophical distinction. It's called the is-ought distinction. So it's meant to separate the use of statements about fact, the way the world is, and statements about the way the world ought to be. So oftentimes these two statements are very easily confused. For example, you can make a bunch of statements about the way the world is as a matter of fact, but those are not going to, you're not going to be able to deduce any statements about the way the world ought to be from such statements. So if you look at what Lee Kuan Yew says, he says that humans are in fact not equal. But from that, you can take either of the two ought positions, that humans ought to be made equal, or they ought to be unequal. Neither of those two statements is going to be derivable from the way the world actually is. So it's a philosophical convenience that you separate the is and the ought sorts of statements. So that's basically what I meant by that comment.
I see a point. I mean, I knew about the realistic implications about humans not being equal in the sense of what? I mean, humans are not equal because each of them have individual personalities, which is right. And, well, from that video about Lee Kuan Yew, each ideology, whether by religion or others, beings equal. And the context from the user who uploaded that video seems to imply that egalitarians still don't have realistic expectations. And well, how do I say this? Well, it's one of the reasons why I don't identify myself or with the modern classical liberals such as Sargon or Kraut, because it seemed that they're not being realistic. And, well, Fritz Imperial called them out with his video, especially in the video about his response to Kraut. And ever since I watched the video, I have a changed perception on how liberal values actually work. I've since changed my thoughts about liberal values. It requires a cultural foundation.
That you're referring to, that was the culture is not my cause. That was in response to Crown Tea.
Yes, that was weeks before I watched the video of Lee Kuan Yew.
Yeah. Well, on a cultural libertarian point of view, that seems to be a very difficult question for them to answer. I think Fritz is, and also the distributors are very right to point out that issue. The cultural libertarians seem to be generally uninterested in such matters, and they really don't know what to say to many controversial issues such as Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it seems if they want to be philosophically coherent, then how are they making this distinction between which cultures are worth preserving, which ones are worth fighting against? I mean, on what basis is Crown Tea or who's another example? Sargon. On what basis are they saying that?
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking about also maybe some other libertarians like Uzalu, maybe the Amazing Atheist. But I would probably look at more into Uzalu's idea of egalitarianism, isn't about, or just liberalism in general.
Yeah. Well, the Amazing Atheist is just generally incoherent, so I don't really put much purchase into what he has to say about any particular topic. Culture, he's especially incoherent because he says he's a misanthrope, he's a nihilist, yet he says things like he wants to see humans reach their full potential, which I don't know if any of you guys can make sense of that.
No, it's just that I just can't make full potential of being a Catholic. I'm Catholic, and yet he thinks that God is objectively bad. For Christ's sake,
yeah.
Like, what did Christians do to you? What did Christians do to you, Amazing Atheist? I'm not like telling you to believe in God, for Christ's sakes. I'm just believing what I want to believe, and I want to create a community that we can all get along. That's what the majority of Christians want to do: build a community of peace, not that.
Yeah, the distributist has a good name for this this common rhetorical tactic that people like the Amazing Atheist use to simultaneously say that they're nihilists, but then make these moral judgments. He calls it the Hitchens two-step. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Haven't heard of that.
Yeah. It's basically, as I said, they want to say that they're disinterested. They want to say that they're nihilists, so that they can condemn any arbitrary issue, but then they want to say that there's some objective basis for saying that some things are immoral and some things are moral. So they want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, you can't get that, my friend.
Yep.
And you can't get it unless if you're a Christian priest.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to be like one of these crazy pragmatists, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you're going to have to stop saying that you're being rational about all of this.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, many atheists really become arrogant because they ignore the fact that atheism is a belief in itself.
But it isn't. I would tell them that's not a religion. Atheism is not a belief. It's a well, technically, you just don't believe in God because there's no actual evidence. It's you don't believe anything. You're just an average person who just doesn't believe in God. That's it. It's not a belief.
Well, it seems to a lot of atheists they want to vacillate defining atheism as a lack of belief or the actual belief that there is no God. So which are we really talking about here? Yeah.
Well, I can say this is what makes. What are the steps to being an atheist versus say what's the steps to being a Christian? Both are different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm kind of an agnostic myself, so I can't really sympathize with a position like the Amazing Atheist, who I take that as actually. I mean,
I can't. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I take the Amazing Atheist to actually be holding the position that there is no God. He claims to actually have disproofs of such a concept, so it seems that he's actually, an atheist in a true sense, whereas, someone like me who's more of an agnostic, I don't really think there's any convincing way to resolve the issue.
Exactly. Like I know there's a God in my head, but I can't convince any atheist to tell there is such thing as a God with something that I believe. Yeah.
So Lewis, I had one question regarding your video, and this is inspired by what the distributors did recently. This is actually one of his first questions for progressives in 2017. So he asked, what would it take for society to be equal? So I thought that was an interesting question. Well, let's suppose the progressives have their way completely. What would it take? What does such a society look like where everyone is equal?
It would. This is going to sound a little bit awkward and seemed out of the box, but everyone will end up acting like zombies.
So everyone's without personality, basically.
Yes, I was about to say nothing. All of them
sorry.
without any personality.
But
Yeah,
I
think.
Go ahead.
I was thinking, the idea of nobody every movie that involves sci-fi about a totalitarian society thinks that everyone should be like robots. Everyone should be the same. Well, in reality, they're not. Everyone has imperfections that makes them unique.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask this one for everybody?
Sure.
Had anyone read any books? I know if anybody read George Orwell, 1984, or We by that one Russian guy who was, I think, during World War I. The book called We.
I did read a little bit on 1984, and I did read most of, Brave New World by Huxley.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that I'm not even sure which dystopian future are we heading at. Is it 1984 or Brave New World? Because when I read I did understand most of the book, especially through the ending. In high school, my high school teacher pointed out that the world is actually going closer to the dystopian future of Brave New World because of the sexualization and something involved with drugs. But that was.
Yeah.
But I was only a junior or in 11th grade at the time. That was before I countered way before I countered skeptics such as Sargon of Akkad. But that was after I had discovered Mr. Repsion. But it was the discovery of Sargon of Akkad that led me to understand the world better. And the book Brave New World seems to be a transition, but at the time I was still a somewhat naive person before encountering the skeptics.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the aspect of drug use in Brave New World. If you haven't read the book, there's a drug called Soma, which is basically, it sounds like ecstasy to me. It makes you happy throughout the day. So you would, in the book, they would perform their workday duties, and then their greatest joy was taking this drug, and then they would just be in total titillation throughout the day. But yeah, there is that aspect of the combination of overt sexualization with drug use. And I tend to agree that if we're heading toward any particular dystopia, it's going to be Brave New World versus 1984. Because in 1984, it sounds a little hyperbolic, where the government's implementing all these surveillance systems, and you're just unable to escape any aspect of it.
I feel like
this is my view on it. Yeah.
My view is going to be it's going to be like We. I know that we're going towards a dystopian world, but everybody is starting a realization of how this is going to happen. There is going to be a resistance going to fight against the evil corporatist totalitarian government.
But one of the interesting aspects about Brave New World too is that the society that's created is only really superficially equal. If you look at the beginning of the book, of course, everyone's certainly unequal. You have the social hierarchy. I forget what the names of them are called. You have the alphas and the betas, and then you have the lowest down in the social.
Yes, the alphas and beta. But I forgot What were the other classes? I think it has something to do with C's and D's. What is the Greek letter for C? I've heard of delta.
Gamma, I mean the third one?
Yes, gammas. And then the delta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, all the groups are basically created by taking the fetuses and then giving them like brain damage through alcohol poisoning or something. So you lower their intelligence. Is that how it worked?
I don't know. I'm slowly forgetting the details of the book. Only the major details of the book and the plot.
So if we're going to summarize, or if we're going to attribute an aspect of equality to Brave New World, what sort of equality do they really have? Because as I suggested, the society that they created is manifestly unequal. You have the alphas and the betas. There's a clear social hierarchy there, but what aspect of equality is actually there, would you say?
Let's see.
Yeah.
There is still a hierarchy within that dystopian world, and compare that to 1984. I'm not even sure there was a hierarchy except for the world leaders calling out for war, which implies there are only two classes. The proles, which is maybe 98% of the world in 1984, and the elites, which is a small fraction, and they control the people through double think.
Hold up. Let me resume. Double think. Can someone remind me myself about that? Shit.
Well, that's an Orwellian concept, right? That's where you can maintain two contradictory positions in your head simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
Like you can accept things like what was it? War is peace. There are a few examples in 1984. Yeah, war is peace.
Okay.
Love is hatred. Things like that. You can accept two contradictory notions in your head. If I remember, the whole thing was.
I'm getting a little bit of a higher. Two mutually beliefs are as correct. Oh, two mutually contradictory beliefs are both correct. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically when people say things are Orwellian, I mean that there's some play on language that allows you to somehow reconcile these obviously contradictory ideas. So I think that's what doublethink was.
Okay.
But again,
what do you guys think about like? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I find things like that a little bit hyperbolic. I mean, you hear like on social media all the time that certain things are Orwellian. I find them to be not so Orwellian. Usually, when people say they are actually Orwellian, it's not be a little hyperbolic, but whatever.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
I was thinking, what do you think about the ideas of thought crime gonna be rising up? The idea of thinking about committing a crime, but then again, you're not gonna about doing it. In just basically short terms, what do you guys think about the the idea of thinking about their crimes and think about how they're gonna commit it?
So this, let's suppose this actually happened. This would be, you could be tried for thinking a thought, thinking particular thoughts or holding certain political positions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that already exists, right?
Does that actually exist?
Yeah, I mean, for example, when you see like a lot of rhetoric from the SJWs, that if you think a certain way about a certain group of people, especially minorities, you are automatically a bad person or a racist. You don't have to positively act upon them to be a racist. That's like an automatic process that, and free will is not included. It's step aside.
Yeah, but perhaps I'm not sure if we have any Orwell experts here. What was Orwell thinking about at the time? Was there some aspect of his situation that led him to think of this concept of thought crime? Was it fascism that he was
Orwell, I think he was involved in the Spanish Civil War, if I remember. And in Spain, well, he was, how you say it, like, he supported the socialists there, what's the name of the Spanish? The Republicans in Spain. but there was a lot of infighting between them because you could see in that band, in that group, I mean, like the very communists, the very radicals, or the more central socialists, more peaceful socialists. So he could see that there was a lot of misconception when and like evil use of words when parties and unions you utilize those words. It was a misguiding, forced misguiding of words. That was what he criticized, and many people get Orwell wrong because they assume the Orwellian with totalitarianism like fascism.
Yeah.
But he also specified this aspect of words of subjectivity of the inner, you know, and I think that's it.
So, in our conception so far, we have these two dystopian views of equality. We're proposing that one view of equality is a world that looks like 1984 and another one that looks like Brave New Worlds. Are there any others that we have in mind? Like, let's suppose that the progressives totally got their way, the world is totally equal. Does it look something like a communist utopia, like the way the Marxists were originally thinking about?
Well, there's something contradictory involved with Orwell. When I was looking up at a Wikipedia article for Orwell, it did say something about him being a socialist, yet at that same time, he is anti-totalitarian, and his book, 1984, was a warning against totalitarianism. But with his views, however, is that you can't have socialism at the same time anti-totalitarianism. You need to require a state in order to have socialism, and a bad one, as in very tyrannical. Now, to be clear, I'm aware that socialism is not that black and white, it's in a scale, but Arianism with socialism is very bad.
So we're saying that the socialism necessarily leads to totalitarianism? Is that was we take to be the major thesis of Orwell?
Well,
It is at least a gradation of totalitarianism.
Yes, in theory, socialism doesn't require state force, just the means of production to the people. In practice, however, socialism requires totalitarianism.
Yeah, one of the reasons that Orwell like saw himself as a socialist is because he was a sympathizer of cultural movements, not political movements per se, but cultural movements. He really praised the English like common life, and he wrote about it in many of his personal travels and things like that. So that's I think that's the reason why he became more of a socialist. There was the commoner appeal in that, or at least he thought so.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's to be distinguished from the sort of socialists we have running around nowadays who are highfalutin academics, whereas Orwell, he seemed to be more interested in the common person.
I do need to point out that King Vegeta pointed out that Orwell was anti-nationalist, and 1984 was warning the world about the Soviet Union, and that D. Cedeno was referring to state capitalism in the foreword of 1984. So, what does this mean?
Bring it back to the discussion of equality. So we're saying that the people in 1984 represent an equal society. I mean, because I've always had this skepticism that 1984 is a kind of a hyperbolic representation of what certain political movements nowadays really want. I mean, do the progressives really want something like 1984?
Well,
Not necessarily, I would imagine.
I was about to say that's one way to put it. It seems to be closer to Orwellian, but then, but in some other ways, we're heading closer to Brave New World. With let's see, with the government giving out, um, let's see, welfare and other free stuff, which I don't even agree with.
So you're saying that you're totally against the concept of any welfare state?
Yes, I'm actually against the welfare state.
Can I add my 2 cents?
Yes.
I feel like or welfare should be applied only just for like a few like years, or maybe just like 2 years or a year maybe to find a job. And if if their years are done, they no longer get welfare.
But
I don't. Oh, go
I
ahead.
mean, why should they have welfare? I mean, what's your justification?
Well, just the struggle reasons, maybe. Then again, it's kind of hard to find a job nowadays, in my opinion. The only welfare I wouldn't allow is illegal aliens, in my opinion.
Do you know was placed for the first time? What was
What
the
is it?
reason of why
I,
welfare state was placed for the first time?
So you're asking what's the historical impetus for welfare?
An emotional drive that put the welfare.
oh yeah,
It was this is bad. We should do something about it. So
yeah. Yeah, I can.
it does appear to be good. It does feel good. The welfare state. That there's people who really don't have the opportunity to get along in a free market environment. But the thing is that even if it's direct, like immediate uh, good, it's a long term bad thing because it's detrimental in the long term because you're eliminating the charity in society. It's forced charity. You see, it's really not charity because charity is voluntary. When it's forced, it ceases to be charity. So there's a degeneration in values, in virtues.
Okay.
That's what's really detrimental, not the fact that we can immediately here help people. Like imagine that you're on the street in your car and you see like these people in the street that are asking for money. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I've
Well,
seen those a
well,
lot.
you could give them I don't know a
Food,
amount of money.
water.
Food is different, but
Yeah. Oh, okay.
imagine you could give them money, or you could not give them money. But what's the important thing? The important thing is that you should not. I mean, you would want to give them money because it would be good in your perspective. You would be saying, "I am doing good. I'm doing this good to these people." But if you analyze it correctly in the long term, you could do better by being selfish. Well, not really self, but being self-interested and growing yourself so you can help others, like a job creation.
Mm.
So, in other words, um, Vergilius, what do you mean by that?
But sorry?
So,
Can you simplify it? I got a little confused.
Yes. I mean, in a simple way, it's like think about the long term and don't be emotional in your impulses because
Okay.
it may feel good at first, but it surely won't be.
Oh, sorry.
so you're saying basically that welfare seems like a very superficially good thing, and it
Yes,
appeals to the emotion in the short
it's a
term, but in the
facade.
long term, it's going to be disaster.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's not really the fact that it's economically unsustainable, but also that it's a detriment to the human value of charity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, Well, I always hear this point that the welfare state is unstable. So does that mean that there's an impending catastrophe if we all accept that the welfare state is growing?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
yes.
also the fact that we're also sharing our money with other countries as well. I've heard from Evelyn.
Well, I was about to say, well, to put two things, how do I say this? Remember the great progress policies, I can't remember the name, from Lyndon B. Johnson, in which those were meant to help the black communities. Well, those communities have since become worse, and then they're starting to become too dependent on the welfare. But in another example, many liberals think that Scandinavian countries are considered good socialist countries when I had already pointed that out in my video that those are not socialist countries, those are capitalist countries with a large welfare state. They're still capitalist. It's just they watered down the capitalism. They're more capitalist than the United States since they have low regulations in their economies and low levels of protectionism. However, their welfare state is much larger than the United States, and many liberals claim those policies worked, except researched it, and thanks to a few libertarians pointing that out, actual libertarians, their welfare states are unstable, even if they hadn't brought any immigrants in it. They're not sustainable in the long run. In fact, Norway is actually, I was about to say, I read an article somewhere that Norway is actually in trouble because of its welfare state, because it's relying too much on its oil resources. And I've learned in basic economics that when you study economics, you're supposed to translate resources into products using the fewest resources as possible in order to improve the living standards. And Norway has abused its oil resources, and as a result, they're going to run out in about a few decades. That's not long term. They're dependent on the oil in order to keep up with the welfare state.
So you're saying Norway's prognosis is a couple of decades?
Yes, and that's even without the immigrants. Norway has, I don't know what is the current status of the migrant crisis in the most Scandinavian countries except for Sweden. But even if Norway hadn't brought in a lot of migrants, it's not going to last very long because of its large welfare state, and it's running out of oil. It needs to diversify its economy and reduce the welfare state.
So bringing this back to the concept of equality, so we're saying that the welfare state is one of these common means of trying to make people equal or give everyone an equal footing. Is that kind of what we're saying here?
Common footing. Well, that topic is a little bit confusing, but if yes, equal footing, we're supposed to encourage equal opportunity, but because there are many differences in each individual race and class, there is an equal opportunity may be different to each individual depending on the circumstances they have, which is why we're supposed to encourage a meritocracy.
Because if I were a progressive, I would say that I would pretty much make the case for the welfare state on the moral ground that you have a group of people who are economically disadvantaged, and why not tax people, put it into some pool, and then distribute it around. You just give them something like a welfare check or a minimal basic income. I mean, would you say that's the progressive case, more or less?
Yes, but that would also be in the left libertarians, which I believe that's an oxymoron of such a term. I mean, I've got into a few arguments with some liberals who are not even SJWs, and they claim it's actually the right thing for us to be taxed and then distribute the money to the poor. But the problem is it's actually less efficient than charity.
So you're making the case against the welfare state also on these moral grounds that to impose such a welfare state would be denigrating to charity.
Yes. What do you mean by denigrating?
Well, I think Virgilius was saying something like, if you have something like a welfare state, it diminishes genuine charity, right?
The welfare
Yes.
state is a facade.
What?
It's a facade for charity. It's not really charity because I explained that it's not charity when it's forced, but it plays the role of charity. It tries to makes us feel good. Oh, the poor, the elderly. That's the point. Emotion.
Mm-hmm. But pretending again I was some sort of progressive, supposing we all agree that such impulses are good, that it's good to give to the less fortunate, wouldn't it be more rational to have like a welfare state in charge of making sure that happens? Because it's kind of impractical to go out to homeless people every day and give them money.
No, you shouldn't do it in a welfare state because that makes a constant. You see, the human will is not like a constant; it is changeable. It changes with the times, with the like emotions, right? So when you make it in a constant welfare state, you also eliminate the chance of charity, even if there was the charity at the beginning. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even if you were charitable and the drive, like the justification was charity, at the end it will not. It will be forced.
Mm-hmm. To just introduce another point too, we're saying that the welfare state is eventually going to collapse. One interesting point, I think, is that one of the concepts of the Frankfurt School and some of the critical theorists, they think that the present system, the form of capitalism that we have now, is sufficiently resilient to basically absorb any sort of contradiction within it.
Well, to be honest, we don't have capitalism. We have corporatism, which means our economy is mixed, but it's sliding towards socialism with all of its regulations.
So you're saying that we're basically living in a socialist country?
In a mixed country.
I said mixed economy.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps you can spell out, because I'm totally ignorant on economics. So the difference between or precisely what corporatism is?
Corporatism is when the state merges with corporations because of government interference in the economy. That's as best as I could describe, though.
I don't know if you remember, but once in most of the West, all the socialist parties were banned because they fear that they will have a negative effect on society and the economy. And I think this is the justification that we have now, like pseudo socialist capitalist economies in our countries. That because there's been like 100 years of mixed political parties that go back and forth between left and right. I mean, it was unescapable to have this result.
So Louis, you're saying that you identify more as a libertarian?
Yes, without saying left or right, because I know the political compass is, well, crap. There's no such thing
Yeah,
as left libertarian.
yeah, I can't make any sense out of left libertarian, whatever that means. So under this political view, if you take the common centrist position, they're going to say something like, "Yeah, we know full-blown socialism is bad, but just to help out those who are less fortunate, let's have some aspects of welfare. Let's have some aspects of a private, or what they call a public option for healthcare." Would you be sympathetic to these proposals, or?
Um, can you please repeat that?
Yeah, so one of the centrist view is that you should incorporate some aspects of socialism into your political view. That some features like a public option for healthcare or some form of welfare is just a good thing that you can just put into the system. Would you be sympathetic to those proposals, or are they kind of ruled out on this libertarianism?
Um, I'm not. No, because if you mix the socialist elements into capitalism, socialism is cancer. It can grow over time, and um, and when you said about the public option, I can accept that, but that would have been inspired by the Swiss healthcare system, in which it has both public and private options, but the public um, healthcare system is actually stronger than the public, because not only it has strong private ownership over healthcare for those business owners, as best as I could describe, it also has lower regulations. I would inspire something from the Swiss healthcare system, minus um, legislation towards in people requiring themselves to buy insurance. In other words, it's possible for public healthcare to coexist with private, but you need to deregulate the private sector first.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that socialist views are kind of malignant, as in a cancer, that you shouldn't let any aspect of socialism in, lest it infest the entire economy?
Well, yes, although I do need to be clear that capitalism isn't in black and white. The economy isn't in black and white. It's on a scale from the most free to the least free. I mean, there will still always be some socialism there. It's just you have to keep it at a minimal. Otherwise, it will grow over time.
Mm-hmm. So another question I had for you on your video is that you brought up the article at the end. I think it was by the Independent Man.
Yes.
He cited some article that tried to draw some distinction between the concepts of sameness and equality. Is there really a meaningful distinction between those two ideas of being the same and being equal?
Well, in the context of the article, the writer of the article did define those two words differently, even though in normal circumstances, both words basically mean the same thing. But the writer of the article, the Independent Man, used are used differently and are not mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm. So do you remember what those definitions were? The sameness and equality?
When the writer used the word equality, she meant equal opportunity. And when the writer used the word sameness, she used it in the context of equal outcome, such as 50% representation of women and 50% of men, even though in real life it doesn't work. There are too many choices for both men and women.
Mm-hmm. Because I've heard some other people try to draw some distinction between those two concepts, and often what they would say is that sameness means that if people were to be exactly the same, that would mean that they're identical in all conceivable ways. Their personality is the same, their talents are the same, their gender is the same. Whereas equality means that they are treated, although they are slightly different in their natures, they're treated the same way under the law. So equality under the law would be what equal means in that aspect. So I was wondering if that was related at all to the distinction that your author was trying to draw.
Well, yes. Which, however, in since my video was meant to get something out of my chest because of what the word equality meant to me, especially from liberals, I simply needed to get that out of my chest. So I thought I would have assumed that article from Independent Man seemed to have fit the idea better.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing I was wondering too. I think you said in the comment section that you were getting something off your chest with making that video. What was it exactly that you were getting off your chest? Was it just that there was some ambiguity in the way the word equality is often used by liberals?
Not just that. It's about, this is going to sound very worrisome, but it's also about how the alt-right seems to be judging anyone who isn't part of the alt-right, even if they are right-wingers themselves, but especially on the left, regardless if they're progressives or not, about the term equality.
I think we're making a mistake here. I mean, discussing equality, different interpretations of equality, and how one group defines equality and how other group defines equality. I think it's not redundant, but circular, if that makes sense. So I think we should really seek the differences that those different equality definitions are essential, the essential differences of those definitions. So I want to ask this question. What's the essential difference between equality of outcome and equality of opportunity?
So it seems that the like if you take a classical liberal view, they're going to answer that equality of opportunity just means that although people may be different in their natures, the system is fair, and whatever happens at the end, whatever the outcome is, that doesn't really matter. What's important is that the system is set up in a fair way, that the law is fair, it treats everyone the same. Whereas the equality of outcome for a progressive is going to be more interested in that. They're going to say that the fact that people are unequal in their outcomes just shows you that the system is unfair. Would that be
exactly
a decent characterization?
Point. The essential difference is justice. I mean, one is just, one is unjust. To really understand equality, we must really discuss the essence of justice. We cannot really put those apart.
Do any of you guys know about Rawls or the Rawlsian view of justice?
No.
What? Not really.
Have you heard the veil of ignorance idea?
The veil of ignorance?
Yeah, the veil. It's just a thought experiment.
Okay, I thought you mean like the Islamic idea of the veil, the clothing.
No, not that.
Okay. No, not really.
Please explain.
Well, it's just a thought experiment on what justice might be. So what you're supposed to do in the veil of ignorance is you're supposed to blind yourself. You're supposed to imagine yourself in some dark room, and you're supposed to imagine setting up society. And you don't know where you're going to be in society. You don't know if you're going to be a man or woman, whether you're going to be rich or poor. And you're trying to write down the rules by which society is going to operate. So that thought experiment is meant to sort of get rid of any biases that you may have. But I was just curious if anyone has heard of that, because I'm kind of ignorant about the philosophical history of that. But it's very much tied into this idea of social justice, and that you want to set up the rules of society so that groups are also going to be treated justly.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you make that thought experiment with, I don't know, with a British man, and you do the same thing with Arab, with someone that's in Saudi Arabia, you're going to get very different results. It's going to idealize their perfect social way, depending on what they got, their culture, and their personal ideals. That's not really a good definition of justice. I mean, they're not really right justice.
So getting back to the equality of opportunity and that of outcome, on the classical liberal point of view, what more can be accomplished on the equality of opportunity aspect, would you say?
Well, let's see. You make a distinction between wait, when you say classical liberals, are you talking about people such as Sargon and Kraut?
Well, doesn't Sargon call himself a classical liberal, even though you've kind of pointed out that he?
Well,
you
yes,
think that he's not actually a classical liberal?
Well, yes, because for some reason what Sargon did somewhat perverted the term classical liberal. Not only myself knew that he's not an actual classical liberal, even Son of Tiamat was disgusted about Sargon calling himself a classical liberal because of his socialist tendencies, quote unquote. So don't consider Sargon a classical liberal. Libertarians, as in actual libertarians that advocate free markets, are classical liberals, but then that still get perverted. And I need to be clear that I'm not actually an anarchist.
Or not? You don't believe the non-aggression principle?
There are complications with that, and I don't understand about that principle fully. So far I have principles about low regulations, low taxes, and the I've there are others, but I can't seem to remember.
Mm-hmm.
As you were saying about the view of equal opportunity to a classical liberal, well, yes, everyone has equal opportunity, but depending on the circumstances an individual has, they may not. And that depends if the government doesn't intervene into the economy so much to the point, for example, a person wants to start up a new business, and there is a lot of red tape involved in starting his own business, especially with the cumbersome red tape from the federal government, maybe, and the regulation starting up a business has different opportunities depending on what type of the business.
Because I'm wondering, on the classical liberal position, I suspect this is the reason why libertarians aren't really taken seriously in mainstream politics. It seems like they never really have any issues that they really care about, except maybe pot and prostitution. I mean, what remains to be done on the classical liberal point of view? I mean, where exactly can you improve this equality of opportunity?
Let's see. I honestly don't know, unless we need to be clear on what is equal opportunity. If most people has different kinds of equal opportunities, then that means each opportunity is unequal. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such choices many people have.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for such the complications I'm making. It's just I can't seem to express it well.
Mm-hmm. And now, just playing devil's advocate, pretending to be a progressive here, I suspect that progressives are going to be a little bit skeptical of this whole notion of equality of opportunity, just because it's easy to imagine people having very different circumstances. If you just take education, for example, it's not too unreasonable to suppose that some people went to better schools, some people come from better families, and so on, things which are kind of out of their control. So is there anything to this progressive suspicion of the whole worth of equality of opportunity?
Well, yes. If there's such thing as equal opportunity, and for example, a minority can't seem to get it, that could be because um, either they grew up in a poor community, or they seriously need to, or it could be because of IQ levels. But not to go too extreme into that, their lot would improve if they simply just start out in the bottom without, um, let's see, without everyone else getting involved. Wait, am I supposed to express my own opinions about um, equal opportunity from a classical liberal standpoint?
Oh, whichever point of view.
Okay. Then that could be because his lot has been screwed up, because there's simply too many obstacles in their way, either because of lack of education, or the simply of the culture they grew up in, and that's it.
Because the progressives are going to say something like, we take note of those inequalities, so why not have some aspects of government be dedicated to rectifying some of those, such as coming from a poor community, or one which has low standards of education? Because that's going to be the typical progressive talking point. I mean, is that just total nonsense, or?
Yes, because if the government intervenes in the education of that person, that would just to forcing the majority into paying for his own education. And how do I express this? Oh, and he should get educated that is tailored to him through private education. If the education system is deregulated, then he will get into the school of his own choice at an affordable price, and with an education tailored to him, and over time he'll become better than his own generation. But that takes generation for his race to improve. That's it. I'm not good at expressing.
Oh, that's fine. There's one commenter in the chat. He's saying that guy T is a good libertarian. Have you checked him out at all?
Yes, I was thinking was or is. When you're talking about is, no. Was, if I checked his old content, maybe. But I haven't really watched him.
I do watch that guy T often, but I don't agree with his anarchist stances.
Oh, have anyone watched Fritz's approach onto anarcho-capitalism?
Yes, and I actually agreed to him to most extenses.
Yep.
So what were Fritz's major objections? I remember one was that the ANCAP system has virtually no way of guaranteeing that people like children, those who are disabled or disadvantaged, don't get maltreated.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Since it's about anarchy. Anarchy is about like the what's that one saying? The survival of the fittest, wasn't it?
You mean the Darwinistic point of view?
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
really anarchism? Do
I'm
they
not
really say
sure.
that the survival of the fittest?
I'm
I
not
don't think so.
sure. I mean,
Yeah,
the idea of
but
the
just to
anarchy
summarize,
is... Oh, good.
well, yeah, would you say that's a good characterization of Fritz's problems with ANCAP? Is that it
Yeah.
has really no mechanism for dealing with the disadvantaged, such as children?
Yeah, children, the elderly, and disabled. Yeah, I agree with that.
Perhaps I shouldn't say disadvantaged, but those who just by necessity can't really take care of themselves. Like children, obviously, they can't. You can't
But
expect a 2 or 3-year-old to survive in an ANCAP system.
Yeah.
They have to be
Like
raised by
also,
parents.
yeah, and the mentally disabled and then physically disabled as well.
I mean, those seem to me to be very good points. How would an ANCAP respond to something like that? Like just to put ourselves in something like a... Go ahead.
I was thinking, I saw this like tweet from that guy too. I was like, what? Like, what is he talking about? I feel like when it comes to morals as well, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, that guy T? Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean?
You're saying you didn't understand that guy's T's response, or he couldn't understand Fritz?
I understand Fritz's, but I don't understand T's response to Fritz's response to NCAPs. So I was like, what are you talking about? I think it was a tweet about like the idea of morals and how if he slaps a child, he can get away scot-free, wasn't it? I think. Yeah, somewhat like that. I don't know. It's just the idea of like morals. Actually, in an ANCAP society, do you think morals would be like easily thrown away?
I mean, that seems like a really... it seems like in the ANCAP position, if you're going to go with this morality, you need to have some sort of optimistic view of human nature.
The world. Yeah.
I mean, you have to take something on board that humans are naturally good, because you have to... If you just take this objection with children, you have to assume that something like that humans are good by nature. They're going to naturally want to raise children. They're not going to abuse people, and that law is not really needed.
In an ANCAP society, there wouldn't be just like an abandonment of morals, but more like a diversification of morals. Because there's no like a centralization of anything. There's no centralization of society, and therefore everyone would make naturally their own groups, their own little groups here and there, and every single one of them would diversify in what they think to be correct. For example, you would have in a distant place a super conservative, moral centered mini group of people, like a community, and in another place you would have like weed smokers that are simply hedonist.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Doesn't it seem like those little groups are just quasi states?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so I don't understand why that just doesn't deflate anarcho-capitalism and their view of society. You're going to get these little quasi states coming up anyway. They are going to enforce their own rules. So,
Yes.
how do you maintain this anarchy?
You cannot.
No, you can't at all. It's like trying to control. I know this is gonna sound mean. It's kind of hard to control a very hyperactive kid who eats sugar all the time. That's what it feels like, maybe to me.
So, King Vegeta in the chat, he says Somalia is an ANCAP society.
Exactly, I heard that from.
In my own comment in there, I need to point out that Somalia is not an anarcho-capitalist society, for the fact that there are too many governments fighting over
Exactly.
power, and the fact that it doesn't even have the rule of law and no free trade.
So that's the best example of like an ANCAP society. I mean, that's our experiment.
Kid, maybe. Maybe.
I mean, that is a major lawman leftist to make.
Yeah.
I mean, usually, like if you take a communist, they have this idealistic picture in their head that society is going to be wonderful, that you can work a little, and then you have plenty of time for recreation. I mean, that was like an old school socialist view. I'm just imagining this ANCAP. He's saying, look at what we have going on. We have Somalia. I mean, is that what? This is our example.
Besides, aren't most of Somalia Muslim? I mean, I'm sure they hate freedom or free trade.
Yeah, good point.
But is that actually true, or is that just a kind of a hyperbolic statement that Somalia isn't actually an ANCAP society?
No, it is. It's just a hyperbolic statement. I heard that once from Uzulu, just saying Somalia is like one of the known NCAP societies. Yeah, but here's this one question: has there ever been a successful NCAP society?
I don't think so.
No, me neither. That's what Uzulu said, and I do agree. I haven't heard any successful NCAP society because they would never work.
It's kind of fun because that seems like an obvious point. There's no example that we can point to of a successful ANCAP society, and yet I hear ANCAP saying that their position isn't radical at all. It's kind of commonsensical.
I mean,
cough, cough.
I mean, it clearly is radical if you want to try implementing something that hasn't been tried before. Is it not?
Yes, exactly.
Well, yes, and besides, even if anarcho-capitalist societies have never existed in real life, capitalist societies did exist. Have you ever looked up at Hong Kong from 1961 until 1997? That was strongly free market and strongly free trade.
I can explain that from experience-wise. I've been to Hong Kong once, like a few years ago, in modern times, and it was like sort of the Chinese version of New York. There was like a lot of products around, sort of like, yeah, like first world products like Sony, Sony products, like some smartphones like iPhones, in my experience. So it's a pretty like open market.
Do any of you watch China Uncensored?
No. Well, what is it? What is it? Is it a documentary?
No,
or is it funny?
It's here a YouTube channel. It posts like 3 videos or a week, no, like 2 videos a week about China and Asia. But it talks about like Hong Kong and Taiwan, and it's really how you call it, really enlightening.
Free country.
And it's really funny as well. It's like a type news, like news.
So again, I'm totally ignorant on economic matters. So what would we characterize China as? Because they still officially have a communist party, right? Like the Communist Party runs the show there.
Yes.
But they're basically a capitalist society.
I think I would probably view them as socialist, in my opinion.
They have like full control of their corporations. I mean, they give them free reign to do whatever they want, but if the state wants them, like to nationalize it or grab all their assets, they can. Full political power over everything. So it just they let it's like the state's will to be quote unquote free. But it's really not. Again, you should watch that channel, China Uncensored. It explains that really good.
Can I say about China is that they I just really like how they have a lot of knockoff items, which is really funny.
So speaking of censorship, what is your censorship like in China? Because I hear that there's like one internet line and it goes to one place and that thing gets checked for like subversive keywords. Is that right?
I'm not sure. The only thing I know technically censorship wise is that you have to use their own products. That's it. You can't really use any other products like when it comes to like personal life, in my opinion. That's the only censorship I know.
So King Vegeta in the chat, he says, I thought early America was libertarian. So would that be a good characterization of post-revolutionary America that was libertarian?
At what time period, though?
No.
Is it before the 13 colonies became united, or was it after the 13 colonies became united until the early 1900s? Because
So you're saying,
because
yeah,
before
you're saying,
the early because before the 13 colonies became united, while it does embrace free trade, it was still mercantilist.
so I've got another question for you on this issue of equality too. This is another one of the distributous questions. So yes, what ends are legitimate in the pursuit of equality, such as social engineering, restrictions on liberty, or draconian punishments? So I guess this is sort of, we've got to pretend we're progressives here. So what ends are justified in the pursuit of equality?
If there's one ideology, then that's your equality, in my opinion.
So everyone's equal when everyone believes more or less the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the regressive left always like to do. And for Christ's sakes, I live in California, the most liberal and regressive left in all of America, which sucks.
It's kind of interesting because Fritz and I are both we're both in upstate New York, and it's kind of funny because people think New York is just as liberal as something like California, but that's really only true of like New York City and Long Island. If you look at upstate New York, it's like a red state.
Yeah,
with the exception of some of the few cities.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine. I always had the thought that you guys are a little bit more conservative than California. California, of course, is always the liberal as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a cousin that lives in California. I'm from Michigan, and I might need, and she is trying to study to become either nurse. She's studying to become a nurse at a medical at a community college in California, and I might need to tell her that once she graduates with her medical degree, she might need to stay the hell away from California because her earnings will become very much taxed.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I heard people say it was like pretty high, and I agree.
I mean, there are too many regulations and taxes in California that people are moving out to lower, to states that have lower taxes, such as Texas, and I don't remember which New England state has a lower tax rate than others.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What's Michigan like in its political views? Is that a libertarian or is that a socialist utopia there too?
If you look at the election recently, that became a red state, barely though. I mean, southeastern Michigan is mostly blue because of its urban areas, but because of the rural counties, it became red. However, I grew up in the cities in western Michigan, and I'm not even sure about its political standpoint in Michigan, but since it was a Rust Belt state, I think that is somewhat left-leaning. Sure.
Yeah, you should look at the counties when it comes to political ideals. Don't look at the whole state or cities. Just look at the counties.
My county was in the red, albeit barely, thanks to the cities. Well, I live in Kent County, and that is mostly urban, somewhere in western Michigan. King Vegeta, I live in the lower peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So Louis, were there any other questions you had in relation to that the video you made? Or how about some of your other videos too, with some of your responses to like the incident with Edgy Sphinx and the whole debacle?
Oh, have any of you watched my videos about that subject?
Yeah.
I watched the Sandra guy and Crowd T when it comes to the Edgy Sphinx Zulu as well.
I did make 2 videos regarding the debacle between Crowd and Eddie Sphinx. Although in the first video, that subject comes up after my response to Sean and Jen and Crowd, and willing to trust Crowd about edgy, um, in quote unquote infiltrating alt with alt right views, but once I've done a little bit more research, I was a little bit disgusted with what Kraut did, especially when I later found out that, especially since I had already known for weeks that was already a member of the alt right, or is it having alt right views? And yet Kraut didn't even know them for weeks.
Don't you sentence the whole thing as plain drama?
Wow. Jeez, that's sorry, I'm just looking at the polls and sort of the results. I'm gonna share it. Here it is.
I mean, the election results?
Yeah, sort of like. I also checked. So this is Michigan, right? Completely all red states, and the majority of that blues in the main city of Detroit.
Yes,
not that surprised, honestly.
Although I don't understand. Look at Kent County. Why is it pink?
Pink?
Yes, it's in Western Michigan.
It's sort of like a little Eden. Well, it looks a little bit.
Now, where it says Grand Rapids, that's Kent County.
Oh, okay.
Why is it pink?
Okay. Hold on. Let me see. Kent. Oh, fuck. Here it is. Kent. Trying to see. Somewhat of an even match, but Trump won by at least 3% against Clinton. Oh yeah. So the reason why it's pink is just because only a bare amount won in that part work.
And New York is very much the same. You have mostly red counties, and near some of the major cities like Buffalo, Rochester. Those are blue counties. So the map is roughly the same for New York State too.
Loading that well, website or something else. This is. Let me see if we can look through with the other results. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Let me see if I can delete this one. Okay, good. So basically, the most parts that vote for Liberal is in Rochester, Albany, and New York. So mostly the big cities voted, but the other parts mostly just, vote for Trump, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. New York City basically carries the state.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine the big cities are usually the more liberal. I would imagine. Mm-hmm. I don't know why though. For some reason.
Well, it's kind of odd that that big cities, like you point out, it's kind of odd that big cities are very liberal. Just because one of the premises of the Liberal Party is that they're supposed to be like the party of the common man, and they're supposed to be helping out the little guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've always found that kind of weird.
That could be because either the big cities often have minorities, or is it because the inner cities are typically poorer?
I would imagine there are probably a lot of poor people living in the major cities because, of course, since it's a big city, everyone knows. And also, I heard that certain cities, like sanctioned cities, that's where most people go over there for.
Hmm. Yeah, it's also very difficult to actually live in New York City too, just because the cost of living is so high there.
And California as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think? Here's this. What do you think is the best idea that we should do to fix our economy? Do you think we should? Do you think we should kick out all the illegals or all the immigrants, and hopefully that will make it better?
Oh, you should.
we should or we shouldn't.
I mean, I have a that works in a high school. It's a math teacher, and the state imposes on her groups of Mexicans to teach them maths. But these Mexicans don't know a word in English and don't even want to study. They just want the free stuff. I mean, really,
Okay.
that those buzzwords are true. That's the funny thing.
Huh.
So was that a guess to kick him out?
Yeah, kick them out. Kick all of them out. Build the wall.
Yeah.
Actually, do you think the wall would work?
No.
I don't think the wall's gonna work. Since
I mean,
like,
what is that wall going to be made out of?
I mean, there's already a wall. There's already a wall.
I mean, we have a fence, and we just have border patrol. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I heard one person said it didn't stop the Cubans back then from importing a lot of stuff to the U.S. right from the old days.
One of the things that a wall and intense border control like that would create is an emotional response again, because there will be
I
like
agree.
a lot of physical injuries and things like that, and the press will be everywhere, and the people will be, oh no, ban the wall, and oh this is inhumane, and things like that.
Yeah, the idea of a family is like we stop separating families. I would love to tell them, I'm sorry, that's the law.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if it is, but I don't care of how you feel. That is the law. I'm sorry.
Especially among the Mexicans will be very emotional about that, and they will make a lot of films about immigrants that try to cross heroically the border, and it's very funny. But
actually, only to Mexicans. I heard Cubans, they prefer actually like the conservative ideals because of the Castro and his ideals, or exactly the same thing as the regressive left. That's what I heard from one person at a live stream.
So you're saying Cubans, they're kind of disappointed with Castro and they want a more conservative ideas?
Yeah, they don't, when they come over here, they don't like the regressive left ideals because it's almost exactly the same thing as Castro's socialist ideals.
Yeah, but what the important issue to bring up is Castro a true socialist or what?
I'm not sure. I think he is a true socialist, maybe. Well, he may be more into fascism because he killed all the gays and the other people.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of what's his name, Trudeau's eulogy to Castro. But what did he say exactly? That Castro was he had his flaws, but he was a good man at heart. What did he say?
A close friend, personal friend.
Yeah, he's a personal friend.
Yeah.
Especially when he's pointed out about Castro offering free healthcare and education, just like the Canadians do, which I absolutely disagree.
I mean, I can imagine Obama saying something analogous about like the fascists. Even though Goebbels was bad with his propaganda and everything, at least the Nazis were anti-smoking.
They think about the small things better than the big things. That's the thing that I kind of laugh about the regressive left. They're like, oh, well, at least, like, say when they kill a person, well, at least he's white, and he was being mean to that person, so I think he has the right to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
And pepper spray him.
That reminds me of one of the distributes videos, too, is that often we have these narratives about people. And if you know a couple little facts, such as, that the Cubans, they executed homosexuals, that things like that, they can immediately those are easy ways to derail the whole narrative.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, facts like that are just important to know that these parties weren't actually moral vanguards.
No, they didn't have trials. They believed in the first years of a revolutionary concept of justice that is self-evident. So when someone was believed to be a traitor, it was directly executed, not trial.
Guys, can I show some pictures of that at my college? After the day that Trump won, everyone just gone ape shit and just created a bunch of protest signs. I'm fine with protests, but not riots. But some of these are a little bit, I would say, ridiculous, maybe. All right.
What is it, like Trump is Hitler? Trump is Goebbels?
Oh, they did say resist fascism. I would tell them,
everyone's a fascist.
I would tell them the real fascists would have one ideology, and that would be the only ideology, the regressive left. And
well, it's interesting you bring that up. The whole concept of the regressive. Did you see Fritz's video on that?
On the regressive left, not yet.
Well, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Fritz. He was criticizing the whole notion of regressive and progressive.
Oh, okay.
Just because it ties into the idea that history has some sort of natural progress to it. That it makes sense to talk about a forward and a backward. That the whole notion that if we keep saying regressive, that they're making history proceed backwards. I mean,
they are out criticism. Okay, I do agree. Like, we're going backwards in time, like during either back into the 60s or into 1992 about the LA race war. So I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you guys? Can you see the picture of one of the signs?
We hold the line.
I'll read it. We stand together. We stick up for the vulnerable. We challenge bigots. We don't let hate speech become normalized. We hold the line.
We are the good guys.
And you know what's very ironic about the phrase "we stand together"? Basically, Obama divided us further.
Yeah, he did. That's exactly it is. I would imagine. Here's the next one. No human being is legal. The feelings part. Oh man. Have you understand the term idea of illegal, sir? First, take your dictionary out before saying no human being is illegal. God, the feelings over facts is so real. Oh, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one's
Trump.
She's speaking on behalf of all women. Presumably, she's in the Women Coalition.
Yeah. All right.
You know that's not too far off from the truth. Women against Trump. That's not so unreasonable. If you look at the election breakdown, then women predominantly fall for Clinton.
Yeah, because she is a woman. Tribalism, isn't it?
Well, that's a pretty persistent theme, isn't it? That the women tend to vote for Democrats.
Well, yeah, because of women's rights, and say, "Oh, the Republicans are misogynistic people."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't deem myself as Republican. I really like conservatism, but it doesn't mean that I don't like classical liberalism. As long as if they work, it works, no matter which way it is for both sides. That's my ideal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. This one I do agree. A nation of immigrants. I do agree with this. America was built on immigration in the 1920s, right? But the thing is, I believe in legal immigration, not illegal immigration. I'm fine with immigrants from around the world coming in and showing their culture and how their thing works. I just don't want it to be illegal.
Just watch out for I was about to say, watch out for the historical revisionism from the alt-right. Remember, they disapprove blacks
and any other people, and they support white supremacy or white power.
Yes, and besides, didn't the Italians and Germans have trouble in the early 20th century? They had trouble trying to assimilate.
Well, is that Sicilians we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think maybe Sicilians, maybe. That's why I heard how the mafia started out. They're mostly half Italians, half Sicilians. I'm not sure.
Yeah, my family's Italian, so we were not very... We're like mainland Italy. We're not very fond of Sicilians for that reason. They're a bunch of...
What about the Neapolitan?
What's that?
What about the Neapolitan? Al Capone was a Neapolitan.
Oh, was he?
He was never part of the mafia because he had a Neapolitan ancestry, not Sicilian.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Next one. Oh, let me move to him. Okay, here he is. I'll read it. Everyone deserves a chance. No hate, no racism, no division, and
unity at all costs.
May have peace.
Arabic.
I have no idea though.
Oh wait.
But it's just the ironic thing is the people who to produce hate, racism, and division is the people who are saying they're not racist or they're hateful or they're not trying to divide people. The double standards is real.
Have you seen any good signs? I mean, I always try to play devil's advocate here, but
good signs. Nah, I think they're just they're like a 5-year-old.
it's called veterans. What was that?
Veterans against Trump. The thing is, though, actually, there was one person whose house was burnt down because he voted for Trump. There's your veterans against Trump.
How many veterans exactly that were against Trump?
I imagine little to none. Little to none. After the whole Blue Lives Matter, that they disapprove Blue Lives Matter, they feel like, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton this time.
This is an alternate spelling I noticed of veterans. Was it veterans? Veterans?
Oh, I see the spelling.
Yeah. Veteran.
Oh, yeah.
What is it usually spelled as? I can't remember the exact spelling.
Oh, it's ter, not tar. It's ter. Veterinarians.
Mm-hmm.
It's with a V. Oh, now I finally realize that.
Veterinarians.
Veterinarians against Trump.
Actually, no, that didn't make sense. Maybe because I would imagine the veterinarians are like the hipster people that they are. They're hipsters. They're very progressive, and they love animals, and they hate everybody who eats meat.
Well, I would put any amount of money on that veterinarians are actually against Trump just because veterinarians, it's a very women-dominated profession now.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree with that. Actually,
statistically, I would put some money on that.
Yeah, I would say to this person, I do agree. Veterinarians are against Trump. Then again, they'd be like, veterinarians. I meant veterans. Like, no, look at the spelling. Like, oh. Hopefully, they don't get triggered by that. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Trump made his position clear about animal issues such as spaying and neutering and getting vaccinated.
Let me read.
Is he skeptical of? Yeah.
I'll read the ones in the flag if you can't read it. We have the honor to serve equal, strong, capable, and powerful. On the right, it says undivided and equal rights. If you proclaimed equal rights, how do you feel if a veteran votes for Trump? Then you say he's a racist.
That's not allowed, no.
Oh, this one again. But
this one's spelled correctly.
And you're right. The VAT. Isn't that taxes in Europe?
I have no idea.
That's what I heard. It's basically taxes in Europe. Be like, tell this to a European. Like, do you mean taxes? And of course, the bottom says, "Not my president." Sorry, sweetie. He's gonna be president soon, baby. Well, I would say this to this. Do you know who's the person who undivided this country? His first name starts with an A. Last one starts with a B. You understand why?
Alec Baldwin?
He's very divisive.
Okay, one of my friends had a real problem with this one. Read this one and guess what? He had a problem with this one. One of my friends, if you can read it. If you can, I'll read it. Can you guys read it?
Stop the white lash.
No, you can't silence the real majority. Stop the white lash. Undivided. Community color united. Do you know what my friend's problem with this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what the problem is?
Was he saying that the minorities are actually the majority? Is that?
Yes, exactly. That is true.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
13, yeah, 8 to 13% doesn't mean majority. Check the dictionary again, please. That's not our real majority.
Yeah, I forget what comedian had a joke about this, that people forget what the definitions of minority and majority. He was saying that if a white person were to go to Africa, he was just like, look at all these minorities over here.
Exactly.
They think minority means black people and Hispanics. It just means by percentage. What is the breakdown?
Exactly. And even in Japan too, be like, look at all these minorities, and except they're the majorities, and there's very little colored people and white people. Here's this one. Resist fascism, which that's on you, baby. I think the real fascists don't include other people who tell what they're voting for or approve of who they're voting for.
So what policies do they think are actually fascist? I've been curious about that. Is it the wall? Is it the...
Immigration, I would imagine blocking immigrants.
Yeah.
Blocking immigrants, women's rights, the LGBT movement, people of skin color, I would imagine. If there anything that's against those groups, then technically you're a fascist, which I would disagree.
Even though he's pretty liberal on
Yeah, he's a liberal.
LGBT, etc. issues.
Yeah, exactly. He is. Well, that's why Ben Shapiro doesn't voted for Trump, because he's not conservative. And I do agree, he's not conservative at all, really.
Did Ben Shapiro vote for Clinton then?
No, he did not.
No.
No, of course not. He didn't even vote for Gary Johnson or Joe Stein either. He voted for none of them.
I mean, that would be a pretty good troll if he came out and said, "Yeah, hey guys,
I voted
I voted for Clinton."
I'd be like, "What the fuck? You're a conservative. You're not supposed to vote for the Clintons."
It's like this whole act he's putting on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pretend to be a conservative.
That'll be amazing. That's true thug life. I would be there. That's true thug life.
The troll life.
Yeah.
Yeah, those signs are generally very uncreative. You know, you could yank a lot of those from like I was gonna say you can yank them from like the fascist Germany, like unity, and we stand together. We are united as a people in our goal.
Sort of, they always tell lies. Black lives matter.
Yeah.
Fascism is left wing. I do agree with that. Fascism is left wing. Didn't Hitler said that he's approve abortion? That's what I heard.
I can't remember.
That's what I heard in one of them.
Abortion, you said?
Yeah, abortion. He approved of abortion.
Well, I'm not sure if would you say abortion is a litmus test for placing you on the left or right? I mean, that is just one of many examples where he had some, where the German fascists had some left-leaning views.
Yeah, they have left-leaning views. If you are against abortion, I would imagine you're either conservative or pro-life, or if you approve it, you're pro-choice or libertarian, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Hitler was against abortion?
The pro-life are solely Christians or not?
Could you say that again?
Are the pro-life Christians, or can a non-Christian be called pro-life?
I think.
Well, I guess conceptually, you can be a non-Christian and pro-life, even though there tends to be that coupling between being pro-life and Christian,
pro-choice,
or at least religious.
Yeah, I mean, for Christians, the majority of like Christians are usually pro-life because in the Bible they say they're against abortion because I don't know. In the moral sense, I finally understand. I used to be pro-choice, then I finally realized, yeah, they're kind of actually getting to the point here that it's actually a baby's. We shouldn't take away a baby's right to live, right?
Well, it's actually funny that they try to search for life on Mars, like searching for a little, how you call a cell, but they don't think that a cell in a womb is not life.
Well, I'm not sure if it's that they don't think it's life. I mean, they would be kind of preposterous to deny that it's life. But I think what the pro-choice is going to say is that the single cell is not sufficient to constitute personhood. Because I mean, to give the opposing point of view, that they're going to say that the clump of cells, until it reaches a certain stage, it's not really a person yet. It doesn't gain that status of personhood.
That to me, that doesn't mean that they're not still counted as a human being. There will be a human being over time, in my opinion. And also, the baby can't speak or do anything to consent, in my opinion. So technically, I'm against that. That's for the reason why.
I mean, it's a tough issue. I mean, if you want to dissect it philosophically, there are a lot of bad justifications for abortion. Like the one I find kind of comical is the clump of goo one. That the clump of cells is a clump of goo. And my response to that is, great, we're all a clump of goo too. We're about 70-80% water.
Yeah,
we're a clump of goo. I mean, if you're going to say that that's why you find abortion permissible, that can't be a good reason. Otherwise, you'd be in favor of outright murder if you're just a clump of goo. So if you're going to be, if you're going to find abortion morally permissible, it's got to be some other reason than that, such as personhood. I mean, that's the one that people often come down upon.
People say like, well, this like if we have abortion, we can have more jobs on there. So you're saying you're allowing more murderers to come up?
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
that sounds like the old school progressives, like the eugenicists and the social engineers. I mean, why don't we just sterilize all the defective people? Let's sterilize the people with low intelligence and who are disabled. Sterilize the homosexuals too, so they don't reproduce. I mean, that can't be your justification.
Okay. On the idea of transgenderism, what do you think about the line for you when it comes to transgenderism? You go first, and I'll explain mine later.
What was it? The line with transgender?
Like how do you think if it's okay to be transgender to the point that it's not okay to be transgender? Like
when
from
it's unconscious.
Okay, by conscious, like you can think you're a girl or anything like that. No, actually,
No. I mean unconscious because it's not decided. I mean when it's really your personal identity, it's not
Oh.
chosen upon. I mean because you
Oh,
see
yeah.
a lot of people that said, I decided to feel like this and dress like this and think that I am
mean,
like this, but
I do
that's
agree.
not really
Well, I
how it
know.
works.
But yeah, but here's this: you can dress like a woman, you can sort of be like a woman, but notice you're not a woman because a man and a woman have two very different personalities to each other when it comes to transgenderism. And I'm also sort of against now the idea of having surgeries on you. I feel like surgery should be the last thing you should do. It shouldn't be your first thing.
Personality is inconsequential. It's a self-identity. If
Yeah.
you really identify as a woman, I mean that's a really a problem. But if you
Yeah,
don't have
I do agree with that.
if you don't have like a free reign or like a decision there, I mean then it should be like research, or I mean, or at least discussed.
Test it.
But if it's
Yeah.
people like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, and
I hate the term
therefore
SJW. I just say progressive, but they're going to say that something like they're going to say that you're enforcing your gender roles, that you have these concepts of what it means to be a man or a woman, and they're going to object to you on those grounds, I think.
Which I think is
Yeah,
kind of a little bit ridiculous. We already got a grounds ruled when it comes to gender. Stop assuming my gender, even though I look like a boy and dress like a boy. In my mind, I'm like a woman. It's just ridiculous, honestly.
Well, I
there's
think
also the question of illness. I think I read about it something because like there's rare illnesses of mental disorders where you think that your body is not your own, or like ghost limbs and all that stuff. Maybe it could be connected. We don't know, but it must be considered.
Yeah, like that's why I agree with Ben Shapiro. It's sort of like a mental disorder. If it's like, if you're trying to be something that you're not, unless if you're naturally transgender, which I'm fine with.
And there's also the thing of a natural point of view, because we can see that there are homosexuals, for example, in the natural world with animals and things like that, but not really transgender animals.
Yeah, this is also a dicey issue because I think Milo very famously pointed out some internal contradiction that often accompanies this whole discussion, that if it is possible to be transgender, that means that it's possible to have a brain which is incongruent with how you feel about your body. But that's the very thing that people often reject, that there is no such thing as a male brain and a female brain. So you have this internal contradiction here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to say that you have the brain of a man in a woman's body, that means that there is such a thing as a male brain, right?
Well, I think how a man thinks versus how a woman thinks. That's my opinion about it. Yeah, like in one time CNN with Ben Shapiro versus a transgender woman used to name Bob Tur. Now he's Zoe Tur, and he he accidentally, I don't think accidentally, he really said instead of he, she called her him or his when it comes to genetics, and she got so triggered he wants to beat him at a parking lot, and then he just said that it was an unwomanly behavior. Yeah. So yeah, there is, when it comes to gender, mental, when it comes to mental things, when it comes to gender, it is pretty different for both sides. Yeah, and I do agree with that.
I mean, certainly there is some aspect of mental disorder to it, even though I don't like to talk about too much, because it's more of a scientific issue than our conversations in the public and Twitter and everything, it really doesn't bear out anything because most of that discussion is anti-scientific anyway. But there is certainly some aspect of a mental disorder where the mental state is incongruent with your perception of your body, dysphoria.
Yeah. Have anyone heard of this guy who actually heard of a guy who thinks that he's a 7-year-old little girl, but he's actually looks like a 50 to 40-year-old man?
And he lives with some guys that adopted him, something like that.
Yes, I heard one of them. I heard one of them said it was a joke, but I told him one time, like, no, I still would gas him if he was like that. Well, not literally. In my mind, I would, but literally, no. I would just try to find a way to reinform him to the point that you're stably okay right now. If not, then we're like, okay, fine, we'll let him. We'll just leave him alone and see how's it be like to be a man in the real world, a grown adult.
Yeah, but we must see that he can be a grown man in the real world. I mean, he can.
No, I know it's gonna.
He can function like that.
I just want to see, though. I know this is going to sound mean, but I just want to experiment and see how he feels about being alone and try to be independent. I know it sounds mean, but hey, why not try it out? Use it for science.
Yeah, there's that contradiction there with the so-called male and female brain. Another one I've always been curious about, more generally with progressives, is that they have a simultaneous skepticism about the reality of race, but they also feel free to use the concepts of race whenever it's convenient politically. For example, to say the Black community or the Hispanic community. I mean, there seems to be an analogous contradiction there where they're trying to maintain those two contradictory positions, that there is a legitimate concept of either gender or ethnicity, but they use those concepts simultaneously when it's politically convenient.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've noticed that as well.
Yeah, I noticed that they always like to throw the word sexist, racist, you're a misogynist, you're a homophobe. All those buzzwords. Which
kind of makes does that make any sense unless there is such a thing as race? Like if that's actually a legitimate concept?
The idea of there's race, or if they're racist without showing them?
I mean, how can you be discriminatory to the race that it's just arbitrary? It's just an arbitrary classification.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, how could be someone's racist if you never seen the action of that person?
Well, I mean, you must have some concept of what a race is to say that someone's discriminating against them, right?
And the idea of racism as well. Don't forget about that. The idea that race is about power and privilege. Black people can't be racist because they don't have the power or privilege.
I mean, if race is just an arbitrary classification, that's saying that someone's racist is no more offensive.
Saying someone's an idiot, or
yeah, I was going to bring up a kind of a nonsensical example of being prejudiced against someone who wears white T-shirts over red T-shirts. I mean, it's just something totally arbitrary. You could just change the T-shirt.
Or someone who's wearing. Actually, no. Oh, go ahead.
That was the end of my example, really.
I was thinking about what about the hijab versus someone, say, who's wearing the hijab. I know, realize that is a religious belief that is sometimes enforced upon by their is it husbands, or depending on their culture as well, like people from Afghanistan or some other places, when it comes to the hijab, the niqab, or the burqa.
Have you ever seen that political cartoon? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, if you claim that when you say race, why do you believe it's an arbitrary feature if there are differences within, let's see, how do I say this, between IQ levels, physical features, and brain sizes?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
If race could apply to those things that makes a person?
Well, to make all those measurements and to say that there's a difference, you need to first say what the groups actually are. I mean, if you just imagine a heterogeneous pool of people, and then you have some concept of what race is, you get divided into groups, and then you make a measurement of what is the IQ of this group, or what is the you mentioned brain size. I'm not too familiar with that one, but the IQ is a big one. Then you make a measurement of the IQ, and then you find what the distribution is. So really, the fundamental question is race a arbitrary or non-arbitrary concept?
By arbitrary, what do you mean by that? Isn't
there's something natural about it?
Okay.
It's not just like it's not like a Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a really arbitrary human convention, like the number two, that you draw the number two in a certain way that you do, that particular ink
Okay.
mark. That's totally arbitrary. Whereas there is actually a concept of two-ness, you know.
Oh, by arbitrary you mean something unusual, or that's
Yeah, kind
something
of
that's different.
human imposed. People often say socially constructed.
Oh, when it comes to IQ and race.
Yeah, the idea of race and gender are social constructions. I think that's what people kind of mean. I say arbitrary, they say social construction.
I don't know by
It's kind of made
social
up.
construction. I was thinking, what do you mean by social construction? You mean like if you're born a woman, then you get less privilege, or if you're born black, you have less privilege in a way? I'm not really that smart. I just don't understand how this idea works.
Well, oftentimes what people say is that when you take a term that seems very biological, like gender, I mean, just common sense, it seems pretty biological. We have some rough biological idea of what we mean by man and a woman. Someone,
Yeah.
a lot of sociologists are going to say something like, those concepts are not really natural concepts. Those are kind of social constructions. That's the term that they often use. That's it's just kind of arbitrary.
Okay,
It's kind
okay.
of something you added on to the situation. There's nothing really natural about it.
Oh,
It's kind of a human
okay,
convenience that we
okay.
separate people into men and women, but there's nothing really natural about it. So that's kind of what I'm wondering with the
There's
notion of
nothing
race.
unnatural about separating women to men. There's nothing unnatural or natural about it.
Well, if you think if it's an arbitrary social construction, there's really no meaning. There's no natural referent when you're talking about a man or woman.
Oh, okay.
But as soon as you say things are social constructions, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot whenever you want to say that someone's discriminating against someone of that group.
Because of their skin color or anything that of their gender.
Yeah, I mean, if race is totally arbitrary, I mean, you can have like I'm forgetting the name of that person who that woman who pretended to be a black woman, who's kind of who was obviously white. I mean,
I was thinking,
yeah.
Can we just replace it with Sean King instead? That would be a better example, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, if race is something like that, where you can kind of just say that you're white or black, I mean, no one really cares. I mean, no one really. It's kind of arbitrary. It's like putting on a different T-shirt.
Yeah, it's like saying, changing from something. You can't change your skin color. I mean, you could, but technically you can't. Just like I feel like I'm gonna be white, you have to put a lot of makeup on or have a color disorder like Michael Jackson.
I mean, if race is something like that, or if these concepts are something like that, then who really cares?
Yeah,
if you're being racist or sexist. Well, if you do actually care about those things, you need to have some sort of concept of what you mean by those two.
Yeah, concept meaning like what do you think about the ideas of certain races,
or what it means, biologically to be of a certain race or to be of a certain gender.
Okay.
I mean, there's no problem. A lot of, this is another weird topic, like the alt-right. They get horribly confused about whether something is whether something is a natural concept. And then they start making this into a political discussion that certain races are inferior to others, certain races are superior to others, and they should be separated out. So there's often that confusion that people.
Oh, okay. So technically, definition terms, that would be called as racism, right?
Say that again.
I was thinking, since they're like saying certain races are inferior, they should be separated. It's sort of like racism, right? That they were trying to do. Since it's
I mean, that's true racism. They often call themselves race realists nowadays because the term racist is so vapid, so overused that they have to come up with another term for it, and they call it race realism.
But here's a realistic thing: nobody is ever, like, of course, to the George Orwell or like the socialist idea that everyone's going to be the same. Not everybody is the same. Every actions that someone takes will have a different outcome. Someone will make a good action. Some people will make it a bad action. People will never always going to be that one thing because everybody else does it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, if somebody the standard idea that black people are usually more violent and usually uneducated versus, say, someone who isn't violent at all and has an education, that would go against their ideas. I'm trying to think of something now, but I'm trying to do this well on my ass.
I think you're arguing about individualism.
I do believe in individualism. I don't believe too much into groups unless it's absolutely necessary or if it makes sense.
I mean, I don't think the individual just negates the whole group. I mean, like, imagine that you think that all Chinese people behave in a certain way, but
Yeah,
you meet this certain Chinese that don't behave, that does not behave in this way. But that
yeah.
does not negate the group's actions. It will not mean, even if this Chinese man is real, that those other Chinese men are not in a certain way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Octane Gamer, when you said individualist, what do you mean by that? Because um, when I use the word individualist, I usually use the economic sense. Which context are you using when you're using the word individualist?
I think of individualism as personal choices or personal things that only applies to you, not to everybody else. Say that.
Since a philosophical term, it's
Yeah,
individual,
philosophical
it's
term. Yeah.
particular, general, and universal.
Oh,
Yes, I agree. Yeah, yeah, like that. I agree with that.
then I agree to both contexts.
Well, I suspect one aspect of individualism you agree with is that people should be judged on their individual character, not based upon group distinctions.
Yeah, exactly. Like Martin Luther King about his "I Have a Dream" speech. We should judge people by the content of their character, not by their skin. And I do agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And that applies to both aspects, good and bad. That individuals should not be judged by the bad aspects of their group in the statistical sense. Also, and this is something with the alt-right too. They think that because whites have slightly higher IQs than blacks, that is somehow a good thing upon the white group. So if you are white, then that's a good thing too. No, not necessarily. I mean, if you're going to be an individualist, you have to take both wings as well.
There is also a misconception between judgment and perception. Because when you say you shouldn't judge someone because you haven't met him, just because you think that they're from a certain group, etc., that it's okay to have a perception, because if he belongs to a certain group, it's okay to have a prejudgment of how they would behave.
Okay.
It's perfectly natural.
Okay.
Imagine that you meet, I don't know, a tattooed guy with scars, and I don't, his males.
Buffed.
You will have a prejudgment of that person, even if you decide to ignore it. You cannot eliminate that prejudgment based on your knowledge of that kind of people.
Well, one aspect with the prejudgment too, that tends to be a valid thing to do when the variation in the thing that you're judging is very small. But when it's very large, that becomes an invalid judgment, almost always.
Yeah.
So if for example, if you have people who are, if you take height, for example, if we were going to meet someone and we never actually saw him, you could make a guess as to what his height is. You could say, okay, it's roughly between maybe 4 feet and 6 feet, just because there's very little variation in height. But if you take something like IQ, where there's a very large variation, I mean, your prejudgment is probably inaccurate, just mathematically speaking, just because the variation is so large. So that's one parameter that you have to look at in the thing that you're judging, is what is the variation in that number.
It all comes about how the category was defined in the first place.
Well, I'm not sure. If, does it come down to the category or what the actual numbers are in that category? Because
yes,
there's nothing intrinsic about IQ that makes it variable. I mean, it's just the measurements that happen to be variable.
Yes, exactly. The categorization of IQ. I mean, you say that the category of high IQ is variable. That's the thing. It all comes about how you categorize.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm still not sure about that, because high IQ is often defined as the upper X% of the distribution. So, even if you define it that way, there's not really any variation there. But that's kind of a technical issue. I don't know if that's very, very interesting to talk about. But anyway, that's one confusion that people on the alt-right often have. I mean, I feel kind of bad blasting the alt-right, because is there anyone here to defend the alt-right or anything?
I wouldn't defend the alt-right that much, really.
I mean, that's my major problem with them, is that they They're very simple-minded in their confusion of group characteristics to individual characteristics.
I think
But
both sides as well.
but do we defend their free speech though?
I would, but I would argue their ideas or their statements about their ideology, in my opinion.
Okay, because I once debated it with Black Acid Lizard, and I really don't want to debate with him again.
Because
Why?
is he autistic? Is he autistic?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, the internet meme part, not like literal autism, but people use autism as like if they have childlike behavior, in my opinion.
No, but he seems to be very extreme.
Okay.
As if he thinks he destroyed my argument, but that's only because I can't seem to debate right. I'm not actually that good.
Okay.
I mean, I usually debate with other leftists, but never with SJWs. And
Or alt rights, because they're
So
way
can you
too
give
extreme.
examples of what he said?
I said a Black Acid Lizard. And I was debating with him about how, well, it started out when someone. Do you know who is rocking Mr. E is?
Not really.
Rocking Mr. What?
Rocking Mr. E.
Huh? No, I've heard of it.
Not really.
That guy.
Okay, I probably shouldn't delve too much into that, but while he considers Rocking Mr. E considers himself as a libertarian, although I actually don't always agree with him, especially when I found out he doesn't understand economics, actually. But that's not the point. An alt-righter called him a cuck, even though Rocking Mr. E is actually a nationalist in Britain, and he is for preserving his white culture. However, Rocking Mr. E attacked the alt-right as being collectivists, and a few people from the alt-right then responded to him, and especially with Black Acid Lizard, and I wasn't even sure he constantly strawmanned him, so I asked him in the video about millennial woes and edgy sphinx, and that was the video I was debating with Black Acid Lizard, and I asked him why the commenter why Rocky Mr. E is a cuck, even though he is actually a nationalist.
Yeah.
Then the first commenter wasn't Black Acid Lizard. Then Black Acid Lizard responded to me, claimed that he's not for white nationalism or ethno nationalism because he attacked because Mr. E attacked the alt right, and I defended Rocking Mr. E and by pointing out he is a cultural conservative, as best as I could describe, and I called Black Acid Lizard out for strawmanning him, and he responded no. And then I read the comments from Mr. E's video about the alt-right, and I saw Black Acid Lizard leaving a comment about comparing Somalia and Pakistan to free markets. And he called me the R word for suggesting that I'm being too extreme about the free market. And even though he then responded about praising Pinochet about slaughtering communists with helicopters, which I actually condemn. And
So what you're saying here is this whole debacle was one giant game of guess who the cuck is?
Yeah. Sounds like
ow,
it.
my hand! Sorry, I accidentally
It's okay.
bent my hand.
Oof. Probably just got heard the word "who's the cuck." Oh man, but that sounds like
that's another one of these vapid terms.
Mostly, yes.
I feel like what defines as a cuck? That's the thing about the alt-right. It's the same thing with racism. What defines as a cuck? Really? Is it if somebody who has a libertarian idea that then you would call them a cuck? Like from the Kraut's video on Edgy Sphinx, one of them calls him a cuck.
Well, based on what I've seen of the alt-right, they also they also don't like libertarians that do not give a damn about preserving white culture, or libertarians that attack the alt-right. And when I say libertarian, I mean actual libertarians.
Classical liberals?
Yes, not people like Sargon. It's one thing about Kraut spewing out arguments that turn out to be crappy about the liberal values without a cultural foundation. But it's another when a libertarian who is for cultural preservation, restrictions on immigration, and the fact that Mr. E is a nationalist. Yet the reason he was called a cuck is because he basically called out the alt-right for being too collectivist. He fears against right-wing authoritarianism.
I mean, how could the white nationalists, for example, not be a collectivist group? I mean, why is that an insult? I mean, they should just say, yeah, we're collectivist and get over it. I mean, why is calling them a collectivist some sort of a point against them? Of course you're collectivist.
Discrimination on our policies or political ideas. It's discrimination. Stop assuming it.
I mean, yeah, they talk about white culture all the time. I mean, how is that not collectivist?
White culture. It's white.
Yeah.
I mean, based on my positions about libertarianism, it's very likely it would get called a cuck, which is inevitable since I'm not white.
I mean, is that an intelligible position to be a member of the alt-right and the white nationalists and be an individualist? I mean, I just don't understand that.
No, it's just
I'm an individualist, but I'm a white nationalist. I want the whites as a collective to rule the state.
Guys,
maybe I'm still a little confused.
Well, I mean, the point I'm getting at is that why is collectivist an insult?
Yeah, really, what's wrong with it? That's why all I want to know. What's wrong with collectivism? What's wrong with it, or what's the concept of it?
Well, normally when I use collectivism, I'm using it in the economic sense of let's see, the means of production being controlled by the state. I might have used the word collectivism.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and was it Mathlamon? I can't say your name that well.
Yeah, that's my fake name, Mathoma.
Mathoma?
Yeah.
Oh, Mathoma. Oh, people said let's spam Fritz to join us. I would tell them, no, I don't want to get blocked by him. Please let him have his time playing City Skylines. Fag. No, just kidding.
Oh, by the way, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was going to inject some drama. Speaking of that, speaking of Edgy Sphinx, did any of you guys happen to see the Millennial Woes stream he had with Edgy?
No.
No. Was it the last one? Like before he get out of his social media? Did he? Was it before or after he deleted all his social media accounts?
It was after. It was pretty recent. It was maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Huh. Well, the only one he left on was the Hangouts because everyone wanted to still watch his content, which I do agree. If people still want to watch it.
Well, this is on Millennial Woes channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess he has like I forget what he calls it, but he had a bunch of streams recently, and Edgy was one of them.
Okay.
I guess.
So it looks like he's just not going to make more content. He's just probably just going to be just a casual viewer, maybe.
Well, I guess he said he might make more content, but if he does, it's going to be in a form that's unrecognizable. Like he's going to have like a different channel. It's going to be like a different pseudonym, different sort of content. I'm not sure if he meant there's going to be political content or what.
Well, hopefully it's not going to be like he's just going to call people cucks or anything, or go against completely on the ideas of libertarianism. Which I'm not against libertarianism, but I was thinking,
Well, I mean, with Edgy, I don't really agree with him on the major points, but I do appreciate his point of view on as a distinction between the typical anti-SJW, because I think people like the distributors do point out a major flaw in the typical anti-SJW, in that they really they're quite stupid on cultural matters. They really have no concept of, like, you have Kraut saying culture is not my cause. Yeah, I think they are really quite stupid on that front.
And to be honest, when I first watched the video from Crowd about culture is not my cause, at first I thought I would agree, but I did disagree on a few points. But that was because at the time, while I still had libertarian views, I assumed freedom can be achievable, but that was before I found out from Fritz that you can't achieve freedom without a cultural foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people do not want it, then it's pointless.
I think that video that Kraut did was I feel kind of bad saying it's stupid, but I mean, I at least recognize that the foundations of liberalism do come out of a culture. I mean, it doesn't come out of like the ether or anything. I mean, that has to be grown up. It has to be cultured.
Yeah.
In the literal sense of culture.
Good ideas don't stand by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Not everybody is experienced. Oh, go ahead. Say this. Everybody's experience is different when it comes to political ideas or how they're grown up. Usually, not everybody will have like the same ideology. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, I'm also looking at the chat. Nazis didn't do nothing. It was good boys. I just really like those memes. It's just funny to laugh at. The Nazis didn't do nothing. Nothing. They were.
I noticed Nero was in the chat. Is this Milo that we're talking to?
By Milo, you mean he didn't do nothing? He was a good boy. He was a good gay fag.
I did become confused when we're talking about Milo. Are we referring to Milo?
Oh yeah,
or Milo, that transgender person?
I was talking about Milo of Cat from Milo and Otis.
Oh, I was thinking about Milo Yiannopoulos. I do agree. No, the idea of Milo's
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Okay, I knew it. I was thinking the idea of Milo's is so confusing sometimes, but when you tell political wise, you can easily tell the difference. One is a retard leftist and racist, versus the other one is a smart but very vulgar conservative. But here's one thing though, they're both gay, right? Well, one's a lesbian, one's a gay person, right?
Oh, who was the lesbian one?
Was it Milo Stewart? Or she's a trans, maybe. She may be trans, so I can't assume her gender. I stop assuming people's gender, god damn it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Is she a man or a woman?
I have no idea.
Well, she would be angry at me right now saying, stop assuming my gender!
Yeah.
Well, sorry. There's got to be either one of the ways, or you're just mixed, and that's it. People always like the idea of like pronouns, which I kind of a little bit of a fit on it. Like, what's wrong with saying he or she? I mean, sure, you got to be one of them. Or you can say mixed, maybe. Like, I'm mixed, and that's it.
So Spark says that one is a toucan sexual. Whatever that means.
I think I know who
toucans.
I know who that one person is. His last name involves with a person who goes around killing animals. Oh no, that's his first name. Actually, that's his first name. You guess what it is?
No, I'm lost.
Hunter Avalon. Have you heard of Hunter? Hunter Avalon.
Yeah, Hunter.
Yeah, he's the one who has a toucan sexual problem.
Hmm.
I would imagine. I imagine it's a troll thing. I would imagine. I imagine it's a troll, or he's just really that batshit crazy, which I doubt. He's way too sarcastic.
Is Hunter? Does he put forth any actual political positions, or is he kind of like just a kind of a sensationalist?
Well, I think he does have a political view. He voted for Trump anyway, so I would imagine he's somewhat of a conservative. I think.
Yeah, I mean, because it's really tough to. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's this.
It's really tough to tell who's actually putting forth these political positions because everyone uses too much humor nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't tell if Hunter, for example, he's actually being serious, or someone like Bering or the Amazing Atheist. I mean, I can't tell what these people believe anymore.
Agreed. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do. It's really hard to see why.
Yeah.
Like if you hear the word, here's one thing. Just if you hear anybody here using the word "cuck," then you would know easily that they're the alt-right.
Mm.
And
or
what
at
if
least someone?
Or what if someone is using the word cuck ironically? I mean, some of the leftists did use it on occasion, but only ironically, especially from vernaculars. And
Vern's a cuck?
Friends or Fritz? Fritz?
No.
Oh, what's the problem with like here's the thing, like what's so wrong about conservatism? I heard alt-right they say, "Oh, he's a conservative."
Mm-hmm.
Like
why? I think the problem is that they the typical conservatives don't really care about white nationalism.
Okay, so
some of the race realism. I mean, and they're also. I suspect there's an aspect of foreign policy too. Like a lot of neocons are very concerned with foreign policy.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if the race realists give a crap about that. They're more nationalistic.
Yeah, they're just straight up nationalistics. I would imagine they're not like they don't care about other people. They just only care about white nationalism.
Yeah. So I mean, my perception of when people use the word "cuck" and they're serious about it, they mean someone who's sacrificing the interests of their own country, or who's not as nationalistic as they.
Well, what's wrong with that? Like, I can give people their opinion if they don't like the country that they live in. Then again, I would question why are you living in this country?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't mind like criticisms on like why they don't like America that much or what's wrong with America.
Yeah, that's a little fight that's going on the right. I think the conflict between the alt-right and the typical neocon. Yeah.
Oh, what a neocon? What is it? Not like neoconservative?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by the word neo, anyways? A little context on it, please.
Well, I certainly don't have any idea, but there is a difference between a neoconservative and a paleoconservative, or the difference between old and new conservatives.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know the exact details.
Because I heard like he's a neo-Nazi, he's a neoconservative, all the neo stuff, not like the guy in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fritz would be a good guy to ask on what the particulars of paleo versus neoconservative would be. My understanding is that paleos they seem to be less concerned with foreign policy.
Okay.
Whereas neoconservatives they're more interested in getting involved in foreign affairs than neoconservatives. Okay. I mean that's but one aspect of the distinction. I mean there are going to be others too.
I don't mind it too much, but then again, that's how our economy is not doing that well. If we keep helping with other countries, would you rather help yourself or help others? That's sort of the question.
And besides, I honestly don't agree with the neoconservatives since they are for interventionism and protectionism. Though I'm not even sure what are the economic views of paleoconservatives.
I think one good example of a conservative, people often say William F. Buckley.
Oh, I haven't heard about him.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of. He's written lots of books and there's lots of stuff on YouTube. But I think he's a good example of a good conservative who actually has intelligible positions.
Ben Shapiro, what do you consider?
Yeah.
Well,
not too sure.
He's the only conservative I know. Ben Shapiro as a conservative. Fritz is our Lord and
Milo.
Savior. No, sorry, just reading the chat. Fritz is our Lord and Savior. Then Louis says blasphemy.
Doesn't Milo claim to be some sort of conservative?
Well, he's conservative, but I feel like he's no. Well, to me, he's somewhat being conservative, but he's also trying to be alt-right as well. The thing is, he's trying to make the alt-right more appealing in a way. So technically, he's mixed, half alt-right, half conservative. I mean, he does throw out words and everything. I haven't heard him saying the word cuck, but I heard using the word cunt at least.
I've actually heard him use the word cuck. It was on the Joe Rogan interview.
Okay, maybe so. Technically has some alt-right into him.
Well, I think he was using it comically. The context was they were talking about Trudeau, and he said that Trudeau's a cuck.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem about when using the word cuck. Same thing with racist. God sake, people, know the definition, please. In a way, unless if you, it's kind of hard to. Yeah, it's kind of used as a comic way.
I'm not even sure if the alt-right do ever call Milo a cuck, but judging from the one of the videos from Paul Joseph Watson talk about Richard Spencer, there was a major spill from the alt-right in the comics section calling
I was saying they're calling it the new right now because when they look like, oh god, this is what we're supporting, like, okay, we're going to call it the new right.
So Richard Spencer's a cuck, you're saying?
No, well, calling Watson a cuck.
Wait, did he actually say that? Richard Spencer called Paul Joseph Watson a cuck?
No, the comment section called Watson a cuck because.
Okay, if he did, I'll be like, what? Wow.
Watch the video from Watson commenting about Richard Spencer, and not only that, they're calling Watson a servant to the Jews. Maybe.
All I'm thinking is I heard Milo Yiannopoulos was being disliked by the alt-right because he used to be a Jew, right?
He used to be a Jew?
Yeah, that's what I heard. He used to be a Jew, actually, yeah. Then he turned Catholic.
I thought he's Catholic, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but I heard people said he was born with a Jewish family, then he converted to Catholic.
Well, I remember he was saying he has Greek ancestry, and I think his father was like a bouncer or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I haven't heard that one though. That he has
well, it's Jewish just the alt-right. Maybe that's just being the alt-right because they assume that he's Jewish. Maybe past experience, maybe he's Jewish, but I'm not sure. But he's Catholic now, so it's kind of hard to tell. Well, that's just being the alt-right. They would just call anybody a cuck or a Jew, anyways. In that terms.
I'm never understood why they focus on the Jewish stuff so much.
I don't know why.
I mean, if I were some strategist for the alt-right, they need to cut that crap. I mean,
exactly. If
you can't export that to the late public. Well, it's Jew stuff. I mean, that just triggers red flags of Nazism immediately.
Exactly. Like, God damn it.
I mean, you can't. Are they looking to shoot themselves in the foot? Are they looking to? Are they masochistic or something?
Well, they're white nationalists.
To normalize it.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's the problem. We shouldn't normalize this thing for Christmas. That's why Ben Shapiro doesn't like the alt-right as well. Not to mention, he's a Jew as well.
Oh, Paul Joseph Watson's a
well, no, Ben Shapiro. No, Ben Shapiro's a
Oh,
Jew.
yeah, Ben Shapiro, yeah. He wears a yarmulke, I presume he's...
Yeah.
I mean, that's another horrible thing about the alt-right, too, is now we're talking about, like, the Jew, and we're trying to purge... we're trying to figure out who's a Jew, who's not a Jew.
Sorry to say this, but like, what did the Jews happen to this year or in the present day? What did they done?
Well, as Naked A pointed out, the CEO. What was that sound?
Oh, that was me. I kind of accidentally hit my mic.
Okay, as I was saying, the CEO of MTV, or is it Viacom? I can't remember which company. Had the last name Redstone. Well, if you de-anglicize that birth last name. It's Rothstein, which sounds German, and it's most likely to find the Stein suffix in
Okay.
Jews,
Okay. Oh man.
which means that's one example why the alt right keeps blaming the on our current crisis, because Jews control the media or everything
Yeah, see,
else.
see, what they're doing is you're playing identity politics in the opposite direction. They take note of those facts that Jewish people tend to have a disproportionate representation. They're saying, no, we don't like that. They're playing the identity politics in that way. And we want to intervene on behalf of groups. We don't like that Jewish people happen to have disproportionate representation.
No, they didn't. What happened to they disrespect in over the years? Anyways, well, like what did they happen over like in World War II? I mean, sure, religious wise, yes, but then again, in reality, what did they done? Really, that's what I said to these
I'm
guys.
not even sure. I'm not even sure if the high proportion of Jews in the media is true. Just a meme.
Well, yeah, it's just meme. This is just one big Pepe. Everything's a meme to them, anyways. Just a meme.
Yeah, see, that's another aspect of the overuse of humor when we're trying to
exactly
discuss political views.
They try to cover it up. It's oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I can't tell who's actually making a serious political argument anymore, or whether they're just fucking around or what. I mean, when these Pepe things are what they're talking about, I mean, it's totally confused.
That's the problem. They tried to convert. It's just of course, like the Nazis themselves, they're trying to use it as a scapegoat to make themselves look good, or just look they don't look serious, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. They're a lot of these people just aren't very funny people anyway. I mean, it's another unfortunate aspect of like YouTube and people generally, they think that they're funny in the comedian sense, but they're really
usually
not that funny.
I heard this one quote from a writer from, I think it was the writer for Persepolis. If you know someone who knows how to make good joke or understands about jokes, usually they're a lot smarter.
Yeah,
I think.
So, any other good pieces of gossip or what?
Design it's true.
It's true a Jewish character was removed from Life of Brian, Mr. Spark says.
Oh, Life of Brian.
He's talking about Monty Python, or is that what it is?
No, I'm just looking at all the things he says. All the Jews committed everything. Wait, actually, wasn't what was the name of that? Was it Zuckerberg? Is he Jewish? Or is he Catholic?
I have no idea.
I was wondering.
The inventor of Facebook?
Yeah, the owner of Facebook. I was thinking, is he a Jew? Oh god.
Well, if we're gonna play the alt-right game of you know, have any of you guys heard of the Howard Stern show?
No, not really.
It's actually kind of funny because they actually had a gig on the show. It was called Guess Who's the Jew, and this is exactly what they would do. They would say people's names, and then you would have to guess who's the Jewish one in there. But this was done like 15 years ago when the whole Jew talk come back, and it wasn't nearly that's cancerous. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because they had one guy who would play like a fake Nazi SS officer, and he would come in with this German accent, and he would say, "Oh yes, I think this is that sounds like the Jewish name to me." And then,
it's just funny. Okay, is this right or wrong? The majority, or Hitler was Jewish, and some of the other officers were Jewish as well, right?
Yes.
I was thinking, was it? The majority of the officers or people from like the SS they're closeted, like some closeted people, like they're closeted gays, closeted Jewish. What else they were against?
Disabled people.
Yeah, right.
Gypsies.
Gypsies too. Oh, yeah. Speaking of gypsy, I was gonna say that's. Remember, do you guys know about the Spinosaurus gossip too? That the alt-right was kind of pissed off with him because he has like some gypsy or.
Well, I know he's pissed off easily because of Edgy
Yeah.
Sphinx, right?
Yeah.
Because Edgy Sphinx called him the autistic dinosaur. Yeah.
I mean, I think Son of Team, I called him Spurgasauruskin.
Oh, Spurg. By Spurg meaning what?
That's another stupid joke. Asperger's.
Oh, okay. That's me. I have
Uh,
Asperger's though. If anyone doesn't can't see that.
And how come do you still talk more smoothly than I do? I also have
Um.
autism.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. The thing is, I've been taking speech therapy, which to me it works. It works. I think speech therapy does help with autism and speech impediments, and also sometimes it also can the way you think as well. Like if you think way too fast, that's maybe the reason why you have speech impediment as well. Like what I'm doing right now.
So you understand about my speech problem, which I don't even
Yeah,
know if that's an
yeah,
actual.
yeah. I understand that because as a person who's autistic, I could imagine either you're autistic or you just have having a traumatizing life experience that could make you stutter. That's what I heard
No,
from Andy Gorski, I
never
think. Okay,
never
so
a traumatized event.
okay, so yeah, autism it could be the thing because of course autism is usually about a certain part of the brain doesn't really work well.
You said speech therapy. I think I had. I'm not even sure. I did have a speech teacher when I was in elementary school to help me with my social aspects and a little bit of my speech, but that only improved the way I pronounce the THs.
Okay. I think also it also can be also nervous as well. I used to be like nervous when I first joined into Uzulu's live stream. I was like stuff like that. But since I keep doing it and doing it more, I kind of got the gist of it and easily got it as well.
Uh, and
Yeah. There
besides,
doesn't.
if you compare myself in my first video of my channel to a later video, that's because my first video didn't have a script. I was only ranting, and I didn't even edit out the stuttering.
Yeah. So I do recommend speech therapy. It does work. If it doesn't work, then you could try to find some other solutions. Really, everybody's different. So, about
Also, I do have a particular dialect that I really don't want to lose after I get speech therapy, which
by dialect meaning.
um well, actually it's more like accent. I do my accent is actually different from other people in Michigan, since
Oh,
let's say I drop occasionally final L's, pronounce the word of without the F occasionally. Um, let's see. Um, I, I can't remember the rest.
okay. Maybe culture-wise, maybe.
And I never really understood
Oh,
why these like autism and Asperger's caught on as like a joke.
I can see why.
I don't find what the comedy in that. Maybe I'm just being too PC. I mean, I
Yeah,
never understood the comedic content in that. It's just not. That's not
I
just
can
not
see.
funny.
I mean, the joke.
To me, I can see. I can see why people like to call people autistic. When you research Asperger's, it's usually about not changing, having childish ideas, or like they don't want change. They always like to stick with that one thing, and that's the only thing they like usually.
So when someone calls someone else autistic in the pejorative sense, they're saying that they're being too pig-headed.
Pig-headed, or maybe just being childish. I would say. I know they could have rather say childish, but I think autism they just trying to make it a little bit more funny.
For some reason,
But here,
Yeah,
the word autistic is starting to displace autistic as in the derogatory term. It's starting to
yeah,
pardon my French, but retarded, or is it retard?
either way.
I mean, last year I don't even see a lot of people using autistic as in a derogatory term. Yet now it's starting to become hip. When for the past few years, retarded or retard is more often used.
Wasn't Sargon of
I
Akkad
don't know.
The one who started.
Yeah, I was thinking. I heard people say blame Sargon because I heard that he started it.
Yeah, I remember the stupid video. I mean, it's like a comedian going on stage and telling a bunch of bad jokes. It's not that you
exactly. I would tell. Okay,
it's just a joke that doesn't work. There's just no content there. I mean, the only time when like autism works is when someone says autism is unstoppable, or like a play on words like the amazing autist. Like that I actually find kind of funny. But just saying, oh, he's Sargon, like, oh my god, he's autistic, or oh my god, Asperger's. This is not funny.
Well, to me, it's okay if you understand the gist of it. But if you told person if someone is stupid, then you call a person autistic. No, I don't agree with that. That's not the term. Retardation and autism is different. To give you a short context, autism is usually about social reject and having a hard time to change, and usually have very childish behavior. Versus retardation, of course, means stupid.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's being stupid, then I call them retard. Yeah.
Well, and remember when we were talking about getting a speech therapist? I tried asking for one on my college campus, but they don't have either a speech therapist or a speech pathologist, which I can't even remember the difference. But even if I were to find one, I would have to pay a lot of money.
Since thankfully I was in a program in middle school and high school, so I was covered for that. And since I live in California, which is mostly known for people having disabilities over here, so I'm pretty much covered okay.
Which doesn't even make any sense about California.
Yeah, like we have like a better system over here. Oh, I gotta go. Oh, see you guys.
Are you saying Californians are stupid?
Nope. Hold up.
So what happened to Octane Gamer?
Was he grounded?
Like you're going out somewhere?
Tita Norlin's house. We just watched basketball.
Oh, okay, you're gonna watch the game?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just stay here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Carlos coming home.
All right. I just want a sound system. My mom has a little fear about talking to strangers or people on the internet.
Your mother had a particular accent. It sounds like Spanish. It sounds either Puerto Rican or Mexican.
She's Filipino.
Oh,
Spanish, right?
Then
Technically, Filipinos are half Spanish, half Indonesian or Chinese.
It was a Spanish colony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold up.
So, got any more good piece of gossip or?
Me. Okay. Now, what was the topic we were talking about before? Oh yes, we were talking about the terms autistic and retardation.
They're just a slur now.
All right.
Yeah, it's just a lack of creativity to come up with good insults, in my opinion.
I mean, it's just a matter of time before they come up with new ones, right?
Yeah, it's just more difficult to come up with new ones, I guess. You have to keep reusing the same crap over and over again. Calling people cuck, calling people autistic, and got to be more creative with your pejoratives. So any more good pieces of gossip or thoughts on your videos or?
I just remember. Has any one of you watched my video about the confusion of the terms social democracy and social market economy?
Yes.
You understood
could you
what was
review
that
that?
video about? Has one of you watched the video about the confusion of social democracy and social market economy?
Yeah.
And well then, what is your opinion about leftists, especially people such as Kraut or Sargon, misusing the term social democracy? Because either way, I don't agree with and those systems.
So to review, social democracy was kind of kind of a watered down version of socialism. Is that basically what it was?
No, it was a transitorian. Like, how do you say it? Like in a transition state from a democracy to a socialist system.
I think that video I made was the only one that had a true thesis.
So you're saying Sargon embraces some form of social democracy, which is like this
Yes.
transitory thing.
Yes, although the context, no, I was referring to Kraut embracing social democracy, which, judging from the context, he said he's more likely referring to a social market economy, and he simply misused the term. I don't even agree with a social market economy, which is the system actually used in Scandinavia.
And what would a social market economy be? Just a review.
Okay, a social market economy is, in its simplest definition, basically a watered down capitalism, which means capitalism in which it has low levels of regulations and low levels of protectionism and low levels of nationalization, but it has a large welfare state and high taxes. And I pointed out in that video, social market economies do not last very long as capitalist countries.
So you're saying basically that Kraut is endorsing a position which is a failure?
Yes, in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he says in several of his videos that he's politically very left-leaning, that people often mistake him as being some sort of classical liberal. But he does have some leftist positions. Not to say that that's bad, it's just what his position is.
Yes, and so does Sargon, although he is slightly more left-leaning than Kraut, very likely, judging from the response Dave Coolin made towards Sargon, and the anger from Son of Tiamat towards Sargon.
Yeah, I remember a few of Son of Tiamat's videos. I think he made one about a series of videos about his Rules for Radicals, the Saul Alinsky book, and he couldn't really understand why Sargon endorsed those books, I guess, and another couple of videos on his economic views. Is that right?
Yes, Son of Tiamat accused Sargon of being a closet socialist, and that he should be ashamed of himself, and that Sargon should be ashamed of himself of calling himself a classical liberal.
But he does say that he's a socialist. I mean, he always is whining that the Labour Party in the UK is not being Labour Party.
So he's disappointed that the Labour Party isn't more socialist.
Yes, he's always whining. He complains that the Labour Party is becoming SJW, and that they are not focusing on the socialism.
That seems to be. You kind of have to make a microscopic distinction between those two positions, because it seems like the whole feud between his version of liberalism and SJW, there's so little difference. I mean, this is just a minor feud on the left, isn't it? They're not really that radical positions going at it, are they?
Maybe.
I mean, I've never really interpreted the SJW versus anti-SJW as a serious controversy in terms of political views. It seems like a minor feud on the left.
Yes, especially because they are not giving most of the time they're not giving a political position. They're just refuting themselves.
Yeah.
And on the top of my video, I think I briefly pointed out much earlier in the stream when I was talking about Norway.
Yes. with the oil.
Yes, it's not going to last very long.
Guys, I think I'm gonna have to go right now. It's been like 3 hours since we started the stream. Like, look at the time.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should let's see, conclude the live stream.
Fine.
So, any final thoughts?
Yes. I just want to say that we didn't really like conclude it or reach a conclusion on the equality discussion. And well, my last note was that we really shouldn't confuse ourselves discussing equality for equality's sake, but rather justice.
That is a good point. Virgilius.
My conclusion. In my conclusion, I believe in individual justice and individual equality. In my opinion, but yeah, the idea of equality could be a little bit hard to reach without a culture or sort of like an ideologue that is all the same. So yeah. Also, the amazing autistic is autistic.
And your Mathama?
Well, I guess the major point, if I could conclude, is that we should be careful about drawing inferences from the group numbers to the individuals, as the alt-right does.
Okay, so how did the stream go anyway? It was, in my opinion, it seemed to have gone a little bit awkwardly.
Yeah, I agree. If we had like a little bit more bigger YouTubers like Fritz or St. Clair and on, it would have been a great stream. But still, it's still okay nonetheless, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the streams tend to go well when you have people who have differing points of view. I doubt anyone here really has any
or usually have no
radical positions. I mean, if you take someone like Fritz, who's, I mean, he embraces like monarchism, and of course he's a religious guy. Of course, that's going to be controversial if you're an agnostic or atheist. Or St. Clair, who's he has some differing views on morality. I mean, positions like those are going to generate controversy. Those tend to make for interesting discussions.
Really interesting topics, yeah.
Okay, then. And by the way, how was my voice? Did it sound a little bit rough and awkward?
Well, just a little bit,
Actually,
but
sounded better.
But just a little bit of practice, though. Just keep on practicing. Like, I feel like just be confident in yourself. I think that's the thing. I think just with confidence, you could probably get through it, in my opinion.
There's also an exercise that I recommend for you. You grab a pencil in your mouth, in between your teeth, and you read out loud. You really force your muscles, and then it's really good for you. Not really. Really good for speech.
Okay, then, because my most recent video, which is Message to Modern Feminists, I sounded a little bit articulated, although I still have features of my own accent in there, but it sounded much smoother than before. Since when I was reading the script, I did take short breaks in each sentence in order for myself to breathe. Otherwise, I'll end up running out of breath.
Yeah.
So, good night then.
All right.
Good night.
Sayonara. Sayonara.
Bye.
All right. Bye.